From the mixed mental arts community, this is the woke centrist and Andrew Meinzer. This is
Hello.
Mixed Mental Arts Chats. All right, and what we're going to talk about today, well, this month's book club was Ready Player One. And we'll talk a little bit about the movie. I know Andrew didn't get to watch the whole thing, but at least he can discuss at least what happens in the first half. But
Yeah.
overall, Andrew, what do you think of the book?
Oh, I thought it was a great book. I liked all the like cool action battles and stuff like in the virtual reality, the Oasis. And I was telling you, right, that my favorite part was the ending because the that another aspect that I like about it is that this guy who created the Oasis, the virtual reality world, I forget what his name is. What's his name?
James Halliday.
Yeah, Halliday. That basically the main character like worships him and he's like a prophet or a deity almost. And at the at the very end he gets to like he meets the like basically the video game character that he or the virtual reality presence that he made of himself before he died, and he tells the main character that living in the real world is the only way to find true happiness. And then at the end he actually meets in person that girl who he fell in love with, which I thought was a great ending to the book. And I don't know if it's the
Yeah,
same in the movie, but it's probably not, because I know in the movie he meets that girl Artemis pretty early on.
yeah. There's a lot of differences in the movie that are used, I guess, to move the movie on along a little bit. But it the movie's not bad in itself, but it's not very, I would say, it doesn't adhere to the book as much as some people like. I think that's fine, but
Yeah.
it's only 2 hours, and it's hard to cover a lot of the book in that time period. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's so much stuff in the book
Yeah.
that gets twisted and changed.
Like
Um,
I don't know, like because I said I didn't get to finish watching the movie yet. I don't know if that it does happen later on, but I remember like one kind of main aspect of the book was that period of time where he ended up getting captured by that corporation and then put into indentured servitude for a period of time, basically to pay off his debts for the Oasis. And he did that all so he could infiltrate the organization and gain access to like basically their internet so he could hack into it. Does that
it
happen?
does, but it happens in a different way, and
Okay,
we'll talk about this book chronologically.
that's a
There's
good
going to be
idea.
a ton of spoilers, so just anybody who's checking the stream out, if you haven't read it, maybe you want to read it
I
first
just
and then
I
think
just
about,
talked about the ending first.
and then come back and then take a listen to our analysis and what we like. But yeah, definitely just to let everybody know there are going to be spoilers, so
Yeah.
beware. All right, so let's talk about the time period and what has happened in the world of Wade Watts. So, in the beginning, we get like a really big spiel about the disasters that have happened and kind of the current state of the world. So, it is 2040. So, that's about 20 years from now. So, this is definitely a near future cyberpunk slash sci-fi movie. It's really hard to classify because there's definitely technology in it that seems feasible and not too out of the realm of possibility. It seems like a lot of the technology they use in the book seems extremely feasible in 20 years.
Yeah.
It's not like really crazy, um, technological advancements, because a lot of it really focuses on the technology of the Oasis. Like outside of the Oasis, there are a couple things like auto cabs and planes that fly themselves, but even then, that is extremely feasible as we're already coming upon self-driving cars and that type of transportation. But one of the things that he sets up the world with is that um, oil it becomes a scarcity. So there's kind of like this global disaster um, that really revolves around energy and people fighting over it. And it does seem like there's a post-apocalypse slash, because it's not total, because there are mega cities, right? So you have Columbus, Ohio, like
Yeah.
this sparkling gem in the middle of the United States. And in the book, he comes from Oklahoma, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, okay. Because it's very much different in the movie. In the movie, they all live in the same city.
Yeah.
So in
Yeah.
in the
Yeah, they
book,
live in different, like a few of them at least live in different countries in the book.
yeah, even Shoto and Daito live in the same city
Yeah.
as Wade. But um, yeah, just starting off, there's this disaster, economic downfall, high unemployment rates, people living abject poverty. In the case of Wade Watts, in the book, he's living in like a trailer that's in what they call the stacks.
Yeah.
And the stacks are these like towers of trailers and um, cargo crate containers. And it's basically a high rise because, real estate becomes a premium. And they stack all these trailers up on each other and people are living in them, called the stacks.
Yeah. I like how they also get more into the book into the idea in the book of people basically making money on the Oasis, like how people can have jobs on the Oasis, and how the in the book, what I noticed that's different between the book and the movie is that Wade goes to school in the Oasis, and most people go to the school in the Oasis as long as they can afford it, because the real world school is just fucking shitty. So why not have a virtual reality school where you can like literally go back in time to see the pyramids every day or something like that?
Yeah, and if you notice, I would say that whole first chunk of the book, before he gets the bronze key, that is not in the movie at all. It's almost
Yeah.
as the movie starts at the bronze key challenge, but it's a completely different challenge.
Yeah, it's like a
So,
race in the movie, right? And in the
so
book, it's like an older video game where you have to like use a sword and stuff, and you have to do a duel with this guy, this like dead skeleton, this dead guy who's sitting on his throne or something like that, right?
yeah, so just to kind of summarize the plot and what's driving the characters in this book. James Halliday, which is I would say this very smart, likely lies on the spectrum character. He
Yeah.
created this virtual reality console and world. So he dies of some disease. They don't really tell you what it is. But in his will, he wills away his entire company, which is worth, I think, $240 billion.
I think it was like, actually, I don't remember how much exactly it said in the book, but in the movie it said half a trillion, so 500 billion.
Okay. Yeah, I think it was 240 in the book. But so what he didn't make it easy. So he set up a contest within the Oasis to find for Halliday's Easter egg. He made it incredibly difficult to find, but he did leave clues. So this whoever gets this egg or Easter egg also controls the company, the Oasis itself. So there's a lot of groups that are competing with each other to find this thing. So there's a groups called Gunters, which are kind of like these independent users who are basically like hardcore gamers and scavengers and people working on it and that end. And then there's the Sixers, who's like this corporate entity that has an immense amount of resources behind them to fund this hunt. I think when the book starts, at least the contest had been going on for, I believe, 5 years, and Wade is the first person to discover the first key. So just talking about Wade a little bit, um, he lives in a broken and completely dysfunctional household.
Yeah.
Um, he was also bullied as a kid.
Yeah.
Um, he's described as somebody who has problems socializing in the real world, at least. He seems to do pretty well in the Oasis,
Yeah.
but in the real world, he has a lot of problems. I don't know if it's because he's poor or self conscious, or it could be a number of those things. But as soon as he found out that he could attend public school via the Oasis, he quit regular school. And I think there were two things that he avoided in doing that because he said it was dangerous. The area he lives in is, you know, extremely dangerous. You would have to kind of sneak around and make sure you're not noticed by anybody because you could be robbed, mugged, and what have you. So he gains the advantage of not having to go through that. And he also gets to craft his representation in the world. So he's not like this slightly overweight kid with acne.
Yeah.
He's like
That was a
a more
change in
perfect
the
version.
movie.
Yeah, like in the movie, the characters weren't. I thought they did a good job with H. I thought that's probably the best job they did
I didn't
with the
I didn't get to
characters.
I didn't get to the point where I saw him in the movie. Does he look really different in the movie too?
Uh, yes, I guess one of the things that's different about H in the movie is that H isn't overweight,
Okay.
but I don't think that's really the thing is that all the characters are slightly overweight from what they have described in the book, except when Wade becomes independent and he puts like that workout lock on his Oasis where
Yeah.
he's forced to work out before he goes into the Oasis. But
Yeah.
before then, he was like slightly overweight,
Yeah.
and then he got a little bit more fit.
So he's the like
Uh,
he's kind of a good-looking young man in the movie. Just slightly nerdy.
yeah, well, he's not like super good looking. They
No.
do dress everybody down a bit. Um, Artemis is supposed to be like thick because they describe her as being Rubenesque, and Rubenesque is like curvy and not, you know, thin.
Yeah.
It's like not fat, but not like thin. It's probably, I'd say, more like a Kim Kardashian build, but not ridiculously so.
Okay. Yeah, nothing wrong with that build.
Something like that, but she was also short. So I don't know. It's
Yeah.
because she was kind of short and wiry in the movie. She wasn't like thick, but they did give her
the
the
birthmark.
birthmark.
Yeah.
So they did do that.
Do you think they did a
Um,
good job of that? Because I think they did a fairly good job, but it seemed to me in the book that the birthmark was, I don't know if it was maybe that was maybe part of the reason they didn't emphasize that like a huge amount in the movie was that maybe some of it was her being self-conscious in the book, maybe more of it than I remember. But it seemed to me like it was like a huge birthmark taking up literally half her face or something like that.
well, they do describe it in the book. She does appear to be quite self-conscious in the book as well. So
Yeah,
I think they did that part right. But yeah, I think they accurately portrayed the character personalities in the
yeah,
movie.
yeah, I
They
agree.
had different paths, but the personalities were definitely there. So there's this contest. They're looking for keys, right? And then the first key, and what I really liked about Halliday's contest, and at least the way it was started, is that he made it accessible to everybody, especially school kids, right? So the first key is hidden on a planet of for created for public schooling called Ludus.
Right. Yeah.
And then if you notice in the movie when they're doing like flybys of planets, it shows planet Ludus. They never go there, of course,
Yeah.
in the movie.
Yeah. Um,
So the first key.
yeah.
So okay, the contest. So let's talk about the contest. So there's three keys and three gates. That's noted in the contest itself. That's what they would have to find. Halliday creates a scoreboard to keep track of everybody who is in this Easter egg hunt. So, how does Wade find the first clue? Do you remember how that occurs, Andrew?
In the book, he goes, I forget how exactly he figures out how to find it in the first place, but maybe you remember that, but he finds out that he has to like basically go on this quest in kind of more of an old-fashioned video game world, which they get into a lot more in the book than in the movie. And at the end, he finds like, I don't remember if it's like a dead skeleton type king sort of character or something like that, or if it's just like an evil sorcerer or something. But you have to like basically approach him, and then he wakes up or comes alive, and you have a little conversation, and then you have to beat him in a duel. And in the movie, it's basically just a race, but then the main character figures out by analyzing Halliday's memories, which I think they do a good job of uh, representing visually in the movie. That he figures out that you have to go backwards on the race, and that's the secret way that you win it.
Yeah, in the movie, like the almanac is like this giant archive of videos.
Yeah,
But in the book, like there is a physical almanac, and it's like lists of movies, his favorite games, his journals, and then a lot of these gunters, which is short for egg hunters, have their own personal like log books as well that they keep. Um, they take notes during the quest. So the the reason he found the first key was because he decided to take Latin, which was something that Halliday enjoyed. And
oh
in
right.
his Latin class, yeah, in his Latin class, one of the clues was it was I know part of the clue was you have much to learn. That was part of the clue. And in Latin, I think school meant ludus or something like that. So that kind of clicked with Wade. He's like, you have much to learn. Maybe it's on this planet. So he takes what is it called? There's a dungeon module for Dungeons and Dragons, Tomb of Horrors. He overlays the map and he gets some software to scan Ludus to see if he can find that landmark on Ludus.
Right.
And he finds it, and it's like closer to H's school than his by a lot. Because I think if he had to go there, it was going to be like take him an entire day just to walk there. Because he was poor. He didn't have in the Oasis to do anything. You pretty much have to have some type of money, and he pretty much only had default clothing, which is a black shirt and blue jeans. So even though he did escape some bullying in the real world, he had a bit more control of it in the Oasis because you can't physically attack anybody at school. You can mute people just like you can online. So if
Yeah.
you don't want to hear anybody, you can mute them at school. And nobody knows your name. You know, you're just a random. You have a random name. I think his was W3 or something like that. Wade 3 or something of that nature. But anyway, he finds the dungeon, and like you said, he makes it to the end, which is guarded by a Lich King, which is like an undead sorcerer. That's basically
Oh,
a
okay. Okay.
zombie magician or a zombie wizard.
Okay.
But the first challenge is Joust.
Yeah, right, right, right. Yeah, that's what I was forgetting too.
I never played Joust. That game wasn't before my time, but it's not a game that I owned or anybody I knew played. I knew of the game, I just didn't play it, but I knew the concept because I've seen videos of it. And it's basically Joust, two knights going at it, but you're flying on top of ostriches and you gotta avoid enemies and bump each other with your
Okay.
sticks.
Okay.
So in this challenge, this is where he first meets Artemis in real life. He completes it, and she comes up right after he completes it. He's starstruck, pretty
Yeah.
much meeting his online crush in person. Well, not in person, but as
In
in
the Oasis.
person. Yeah,
Yeah.
and the Oasis is basically in person in this world.
Yeah.
And they kind of hit it off, and then she realizes that he found the key.
Yeah.
Um, she gets mad and she blocks him from leaving so that when he leaves, he has to go through all the traps again
Right.
because he lied to her.
Yeah.
But anyway, before he leaves, he gives her a tip. So she becomes a little bit indebted to him, and then they become friends after that.
Mm-hmm.
Here's one weird thing between the movie and the book. The whole love stuff, like the romance in the book in the movie seems super awkward.
Yeah. And really, really quick too, I thought. Like it takes like he does like get obsessed with her really quickly. I mean, he gets obsessed with her in the book, but I feel like it takes less time than it how much time it takes in the movie.
Well, in the book, you have to remember too is that they actually go on
Yeah.
and they spend a lot of time with each other. In the movie, it's just like, bam, I'm in love
Yeah,
with
it's
you.
like
It's like extremely awkward.
like
I was
like
like,
they go
Jesus.
to that 80s club once and then like by the end of that he's like, I love you. She's like, no, you don't.
Yeah, you don't even know me.
Yeah.
It's like my dad was in a loyalty center.
Yeah.
But
And then And
Yeah, it's super awkward in the movie.
that's interesting too, how in the movie, another thing that happens that doesn't happen in the book is that Artemis is part of this like revolution or rebellion group that I don't think exists in the book if I remember correctly.
No, it's like an anti-Sixers group.
Yeah,
Like in general, Gunters are anti-Sixers, but there was like a real life physical contingent in Columbus, Ohio, of people that were kind of like rebelling against something. I don't know exactly what they're rebelling against. I know they really hate the loyalty centers, which is like the indentured servitude compounds that they have. If you can't pay your debts to IOI, they basically force you into a form of slave labor.
yeah,
And her motivation is completely different in the movie. Her father was had died in indentured servitude. In the movie, she's just like a college kid. I mean, I'm
yeah,
sorry, in the book, she's just a
yeah,
college kid.
yeah. They kind of added some drama there.
Yeah, she's a college kid. She runs a blog. So anyway, in the book, um, you know, Wade has a best friend H, and they're like best buddies, hanging out quite a bit. Once he falls in love with Artemis, their his relationship with H becomes a bit strained, and they kind of move apart. The thing is he becomes like socially isolated, I think, halfway through the book.
Yeah,
So,
and I
yeah,
remember he like when he was spray painting his windows black, and he even spray painted his mirror so he couldn't see the outside world at all, and he couldn't even see himself.
yeah, it gets really, really dark at that point in the book. And we'll get there. It gets super dark. Like there are so many parallels between this guy's life and mine at some point in time in my life that I was like, wow, this book was written for me.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Um,
I wasn't I don't think I was obsessed with video games to that extent, but definitely like when I was a teenager growing up, like, or when I was a little younger than that, when like when we would have sleepovers after school on the weekend or something like that, we would always just like stay up all night playing video games. So that made me nostalgic about that, but I never got like completely disconnected from social life or anything like that.
yeah, that's probably because you didn't play MMOs like I did.
Yeah.
MMOs will do that to you. MMOs become like your second life. There's even a game called Second Life.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
But yeah, they become um, your social support. It's like like those people become your real friends, and then like your real friends are wondering like, what the hell's wrong with this guy? He doesn't come out anymore. He's always playing his MMO. Like, what's going on? It kind of replaces real life in some
Yeah.
sense. But
Yeah.
I totally understand like the dynamic of that. And that's why I was like, wow, this is maybe
Maybe
the
the
author
author
got stuck in these MMOs. Sorry about that. Let me switch off the
Are
mic.
you using your woke powers?
Yeah. No, I
That's
was just switching devices.
and it gives you a woke power voice.
It gives me the woke power of transportation. I can move now.
Right.
But it has a lot of parallels. Like it made me nostalgic of those times because there were positive experiences in these fake worlds that I had, but there's also the alienation of real life where you become cut off to most of civilization. Like in those days when I was playing, because I didn't play WoW. It was another RPG that came out before WoW that was similar called Final Fantasy XI. I played that religiously for a long time,
Oh, okay.
and
Still there, Dusty? Uh-oh. What happened? Oh. Uh-oh. Oh, I wonder if Dusty got kicked off there. Happens with the internet sometimes. Wonder if that would happen with the Oasis if that ever becomes a reality. You would get kicked out of your virtual reality. That would suck if you're in the middle of doing something fun, like slaying a dragon or something like that. What if your internet cut out in the middle when you're right about to kill the dragon? That would suck.
can
You
you
get
hear
kicked
me?
out? You get kicked out?
Yeah, my internet got cut off for some reason. I'm back.
Okay.
What
I
was the
was
last thing you heard me say?
um you were talking about how you played Final Fantasy 11 religiously.
Oh yeah, pretty much. And I found community inside that game that drew me to it.
Right.
So it became like my social, I guess to me it was kind of like social media before social media.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things that can be attractive about social media, right? Like that's one of the things that I get out of mixed mental arts. It's like a social community that's not actually me interacting in real life with these people, although I probably will end up interacting with maybe a handful of my fellow mixed mental artists, but I probably am not going to meet any of them in person, at least for a while, and I definitely haven't met any of you guys in person yet.
Yeah. And you can take on roles in these games that you don't take on in real life. And
Yeah.
what I mean is like in these RPGs I played, I was a leader of
Oh,
like
okay.
I'm a leader of like a 30 to 50 man clan.
Oh, so you got some responsibility in the virtual world.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, that responsibility also pulls you towards that world as well,
Right.
knowing that people depend on you for certain things within the game.
Right.
So there's also that. Um, but yeah, just moving on, I remember that in I guess the second half of the book, we also have to remember after Wade gets that key and he goes through the gate. And we have to remember the gate challenge. It was was it War Games?
Yeah,
He had to mime that movie.
yeah. That was Matthew Broderick's first movie, right?
I don't know if it's his first movie, but I know it's early Matthew Broderick.
I remember watching that when I was a kid and thinking that.
Yeah, I watched that a long time ago.
Yeah. I'm not sure that I was alive when that came out, but I watched it when I was a kid.
Yeah, I was alive, but I didn't watch it probably till like 86 or 7, maybe.
Oh,
I remember.
I definitely wasn't alive when it came out then.
Yeah, I remember when in the movie it looked a lot like Missile Command to me, but anyway, so Nolan Sorrento, he's like the leader of this division in IOI, which is the company that is also looking for the egg. He's not the CEO of the company, he's just the president of a specific division responsible for looking for this egg.
Right.
Well, anyway, he finds out who Wade is. That's one of the dangers of this world and how important it is to be anonymous, especially in the quest for the egg hunt.
Yeah.
So what happens is Sorrento makes him a deal. Makes Wade a deal. Wade refuses the deal. It's a pretty good deal. I think it's like $25 million or something like that.
Yeah,
I don't remember the exact number, but it's pretty.
They said it was something like $5 million a year plus like a $25 million bonus if you find the egg, I think.
Yeah, so it's a pretty sweet deal, but no Gunter wants any Sixer to get control of the Oasis because Sixers just want to corporatize the environment. The Oasis was meant to be kind of like I guess you could say like a libertarian paradise in some sense. Yeah. And the Sixers want to just corporatize it.
Yeah, they want to make you have to pay for every possible thing that you can possibly pay for. And the one thing that one detail that I liked about that in the movie was that guy was saying that studies have shown that 80% of your visual field can be filled up before you go into an epileptic seizure or something like that.
Yeah, with the advertisements.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the main thing from the book is they wanted to make a subscription fee because Oasis is free to access, but IOI wanted to make everybody pay to access the Oasis.
Right.
So they have a meeting. Wade refuses. And Sorrento locates Wade's residence and blows it up.
Yep.
And
it's an aspect of the story in both the book and the movie that I like, that like in this virtual reality, the Oasis, in this future world, people are literally killing each other over it.
Yeah, well, the thing about the Oasis, it has replaced a lot of commerce. So a lot of commerce that's going on in the Oasis is effectively real commerce. So I know that people have jobs in the Oasis. Money in the Oasis can buy you stuff in real life.
Yeah.
So
and I remember too that actually I wanted to ask you about what you thought about this, because I remember one difference in the book that I noticed was that between the book and the movie, rather, was the character of his aunt, who he goes to live with because both of his parents died when he was a child, right? And I liked how in the book they talked about how she was an online escort in the Oasis, and I thought it was interesting that in the movie they like in the book he didn't have that much of a relationship with his aunt, and that's the same in the movie. But in the movie, he also, like, his aunt was kind of like fucking terrible, and she had like an abusive boyfriend, and apparently she had had a string of abusive boyfriends, like abusive to him too.
Yeah, I know. Okay, in the book, she is not a good person, and
Yeah,
they kind of show that by Wade goes home and he finds and fixes like junked laptops.
right.
Also, when his parents died, any government subsidy that they got, she took. So I know they get food vouchers, and she doesn't even use them for Wade at all.
Right. Yeah.
And he has to go and do little odd jobs just so he can eat.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Like, yeah, that's
so,
true.
so in the book, she is a terrible person,
Yeah.
absolutely terrible. So she finds him in the laundry room. She takes his laptop to be sold for rent, even though she takes everything already that is his that's provided by the government.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
she's a horrible person in the book. In the movie, not so much. She just has a shitty boyfriend who's an asshole.
Yeah.
In the book, she's a terrible person, plus she has a shitty boyfriend.
Yeah.
But in the book, it seems like they don't really go into detail about the boyfriend. It's kind of the boyfriend in the movie takes the place of her in the
Yeah.
book.
Yeah. But
But yeah,
and still even in the movie, like when he hits Wade because he was using cheap gloves in the Oasis, and he spent all of their savings on that game to try to get the, I think it was to
it was an
try to get the first,
artifact.
yeah, to try to get that artifact, and he lost all of it, and then he blamed Wade, and then he hit him, and then he thought it looked like he was looking to his aunt for comfort after that, and then she was just getting just as mad at him as she was at the boyfriend.
Well, I can't say like, all right, he shouldn't have been hit, but also he shouldn't have taken their gloves either, right?
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of there's some thing on both sides that you can criticize about that. Like if
Yeah.
he has shitty gloves and he gave it to them because he wanted the better ones,
Mm-hmm.
they're not his gloves and he didn't ask. You
Yeah.
know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I could understand why they would be upset. They
Yeah.
did go a bit far by punching him in the face, but then again, there's a lot at stake in that. But
Yeah.
there's just a lot of miscommunication and BS that happened. But um, yeah, well, the dude's an asshole too, because what was it? Right before they died, um,
Oh
Wade
yeah.
calls to basically um, let them know, hey, you guys are gonna get blown up.
Yeah.
And the boyfriend's like, I don't want him calling here anymore or calling ever again or something like that. And
Yeah.
they get blown up. So going back to that, there's this real danger that pursuing this egg in the oasis can lead to death.
Yep.
So this is also heavy on his mind as well. So he gathers everybody up, lets them know, hey, they blew up my aunt. So if you guys have an identity, keep it hidden. Um,
And he thought they in the book, at least, he thought they were bluffing, right?
well, he thought that either way, even if he did help them with the key, because I think they removed an option off the table, right?
Yeah.
Um, and the third option I think was just to give them a detailed way of getting the key. Because if you remember the first option, if he took it, Sorrento would have gotten fired.
Yeah, and he wanted to have his job, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that option was on the table because his superiors were listening in on the meeting.
yeah,
So the third option was just to give him a detailed guide to the first key. And he believed even if he did that, they would still, kill him.
right.
Right.
But he thought
So,
that he would be safe either way, right? Because he was in that like that place, um, not that well, yeah, that place that's not where the stacks are, the trailer stacks where he lives, because so he thought he would be safe from the explosion.
he was in his hideout.
Yeah.
He was conflicted. He thought they were bluffing, but he also mentioned that even if they weren't bluffing, either way, they would do. Because finally, I think he believes that they were not bluffing. Kind of. I don't know. It's hard because he doesn't help them. One of his rationales was because either way, they would try to kill him.
Yeah,
Like either way.
yeah. And I
So
think like I think that connects to the the problem that Gunters have with them too, because they think that if uh if they get the egg, like you were saying, they're just gonna corporatize the Oasis.
well, basically, if they got the egg, someone like Wade would not be able to access the Oasis.
Yeah, because he's too poor, like you said, right?
Yeah, he doesn't have any money. The only money he gets is from fixing people's Oasis consoles and selling scrap computer parts and fixing computers.
But he got a financial reward for finding the first key, right?
In the Oasis, he did. He
Yeah,
got 20,000 Oasis credits.
yeah,
Yeah, he did. He actually, his real money came from endorsements
right. Yeah,
because,
that's true.
yeah, because he had a bunch of money in the Oasis, but then again, not that doesn't always translate into money outside of the Oasis. Um, it does and doesn't. Of course, you can sell stuff for real money. Like, say you find a really kick-ass artifact, and you could probably put it up in auction for like real money.
Right.
And then, but at that point in time, all he had was his 20,000 in Oasis credits, and then he got some money from doing the endorsement deals.
Yeah. And was it the case? I don't remember. Was it the case in the book as well as the movie? Because I remember that this happens in the movie, that with some of his winnings from that, he gets one of those full body virtual reality suits that you can use your Oasis credits to buy it in the real world.
Yeah, he was able to get a haptic feedback suit
Yeah.
by purchasing that. That's also the case in the book. There were, because you remember too, he was able to buy meals inside of the Oasis,
Right.
and
Yeah.
they would deliver them to his door.
Yeah.
So yeah, there was some overlap of being able to purchase things in real life and get them, or purchase things in Oasis and get them in real life. There's definitely descriptions of that. I think a lot of too the difference between Wade. I guess Wade in the movie wasn't a school kid, and his
Yeah.
character wasn't poor in Oasis
Yeah.
because he had a car, he had like a bunch of clothes and stuff. And when he went on a shopping spree, he only bought like 4 or 5 things
Yeah.
with the money he got. So, yeah, there's definitely a little bit of discrepancy there. But so, anyway, all of these, he tells them what happened, and he tells them, hey, everybody lay low. They can find out who we are. That's when he leaves Oklahoma and drives to Columbus in a armored bus.
Mm-hmm.
As apparently the highways in between cities are extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
And it's a solar powered bus because nobody can get any gas because it's pretty much non existent at this point.
Right.
He arrives in Columbus and he sets up his little place, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, that's when the darkness comes about.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of has a mental breakdown a little bit.
Yeah.
He becomes, I think they mention it a little bit in the book. Are you familiar with Hikikomori?
No, I don't remember what that
Okay,
means.
so a hikikomori is basically a hermit in Japan, like a shut-in.
Okay.
They basically shut themselves in into their apartments and don't interact much with the outside world. And I
Oh, okay.
believe, um, if you remember, he starts to become agoraphobic.
Yeah, basically. Yeah.
Um, All right, so just moving along, they find the second key, right? I think the Sixers, or no, Artemis finds it first.
Yeah.
He finds it later on. And what was the second challenge,
Hmm.
if you
I don't
remember?
I don't actually remember.
All right, so the second challenge, well, was they go to a planet, and it is for a game called Zork.
Right.
And if you remember, he has to basically, he goes into a game called Zork. He finds this whistle inside of a Captain Crunch box,
Oh, right. Yeah.
gathers some trophies, and blows it. So
Yeah.
he gets the second key. And at the same time, the Sixers have some type of artifact that can um, detect somebody's location. So they're kind of ready to pounce. When Artemis finds it, they know that the key is in a specific sector. And then they basically camp that sector until somebody else gets it. And once Wade finds out, they use this artifact again and they find the exact planet where the key is.
Right.
Okay. So they do that game. I forgot what is the gate for that one. Can't
Hmm.
quite remember. I know there's the Zork, and Zork is the gate. Oh, okay. I think it is Black Tiger. Is a video game.
Is it? I don't remember either.
I don't know if that's for the first this I don't know if that's for the yeah, it has to be Black Tiger because I think that's when he gets the robot. Um yeah, that's when he gets the robot.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is a bunch of stuff. I know. Oh no. Okay. And it's like hard. Okay. I think
Was was
because
it
there's so many
mentioned?
different little challenges. I think okay, so the second key, I don't remember if it's the one for Blade Runner or if it's the Black Tiger game.
Is it the third one that's, well, like part of it involves beating Pac-Man with a perfect score in the first try?
No, that was what he thought it was going to be, and they gave him an extra life.
Right. Yeah.
I know for sure that the first key is from getting those trophies together.
Yeah.
And the next part of it is they go to um, with the key, he finds out that okay, it's wrapped in foil, like a
Right.
gum wrapper, and then he says the word, I think unicorn, and then the gum wrapper folds into an origami unicorn, right?
Yeah.
And that gives him the clue that he has to go to like some Blade Runner simulation, or at least go inside the building that is modeled after Blade Runner.
Yeah.
He has to go to the machine that they use for like the lie detecting when they test the the replicants.
Yeah.
And then that starts a video game challenge, which is Black Tiger.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that part's really different, at least from what I saw up until the point that I saw in the movie. That part was really different too. Like when he was searching for the second key in the movie, he did it with Artemis and H and those two other characters too, and they went into like a simulation of the movie The Shining.
Yeah, totally different in the movie.
Yeah,
The thing is, Wade's still on his own until the Sixers are camping the last challenge.
yeah,
So I know that sounded convoluted. So it was Zork to Blade Runner to Black Tiger.
right.
All right, so they get that done. But the Sixers find the crystal key.
Right.
Sixers actually beat them to the crystal key.
Yeah.
So everyone's basically like, damn, we lost. We're like losing here. We might need to pull our resources. So Wade finds out how to get the crystal key. And it's on a planet based off of a Rush song.
Yeah, 2112.
And then he plays the song, and then he gets an additional clue
Yeah.
that he believes the Sixers don't have. He knows exactly where the gate is at this point.
Yeah.
So he goes to the gate, and it's completely blocked off with no way to get in at all. And then one of my favorite parts of the books happens where he concocts this crazy ass plan to infiltrate IOI headquarters.
Yeah.
And what she does, the difference between the movie and the book is it's not him who does the infiltration; it's Artemis who does it.
Oh, okay.
It still happens though. Okay, so
Why
the
does
infiltration part's pretty crazy.
why does she do that in the movie instead of him?
I have no idea, but one of the reasons why I don't know if you remember right after they finish the Shining challenge, they get raided.
I didn't I stopped watching it like in the middle of the Shining challenge.
All right, so in the Shining challenge, she actually gets the key,
Oh, okay.
and they get raided. She helps Wade escape, but she stays behind, and she says, you have to move forward. I have a plan."
Oh, okay.
So she gets captured by them, and then she does the infiltration.
Okay.
She serves, it's the same purpose. So the infiltration is pretty depressing of how he
Yeah.
explains how life is as a indentured servant.
Yeah.
It reminds me of that episode of Black Mirror where they're like bicycling. Do you remember that one? Or do
Oh,
you?
yeah. Yeah. Everyone
Yeah,
just that all day.
yeah, so he gets captured. The craziest thing is actually the capture itself. He has like this crazy war door made out of titanium.
Yeah.
And there's like this crazy SWAT team that has to break him out of this room. But it seems to be that this is actually quite common.
Yeah.
So they're actually already completely prepared to do that.
Yeah.
And so they go up to his room. He makes his preparations
This whole part
to
is like 1984.
yeah, extremely so. So he actually creates a fake debt so that IOI will come after him and turn him into an indentured servant. He gets broken out of his room, and at this point in his life, I think he's like completely shaved bald everywhere.
Yeah, because it's easier to put on his what's it called, a have suit if you have no
The
hair.
haptic suit, yeah.
Haptic suit, yeah. And he has that thing that he does when he showers where he just puts that cream or whatever on his hair and all over his body so that it can just be easier to put on his haptic suit.
And he has Max Headroom as a personal digital assistant.
Yeah.
So
And
yeah, he
that
gets
becomes like his
captured.
only friend during that period, right?
Yeah, during that period, that's his only friend. He gets abandoned by everybody.
Yeah.
Um, I think there's also a pretty dark part where he talks about like buying like a Oasis blow up doll attachment peripheral or something.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
I
Well, yeah,
thought,
like like in the book, he's Artemis. Artemis like dumps him, and he's without her or any of his friends for a really long period of time, right?
yeah, at least for 6 weeks, I believe. He's
Yeah.
still hunting for the key on his own. But he had a falling out with H. I think they parted ways they had argued and then they kind of pissed each other off. During that time, also though, he tries to mend the relationship between Daito and Shoto because when they first met, H had kind of insulted them, and he wanted to kind of try to make up for that. So they go on like this week-long quest, and at the end of the quest, they get an artifact that is an Ultraman capsule,
Right.
and which is a very powerful artifact. I think that artifact actually helps them defeat Mecha Godzilla.
Yeah.
It's like super powerful. But
Yeah.
anyway, that happens. He gets taken. He hatches his plan, which is he hacks into the Sixers database. He gets data. He gets their dossiers. So he finds out all the information they know about the High Five, which is him, Artemis, H,
Yeah.
Shoto, and Daito.
Yeah.
Also, during this period, during the second key, Daito, no, Shoto is killed in real life.
Oh, I forgot about that.
So while
Oh, yeah, they
Shot,
throw him off the rooftop, right?
yeah, they throw him out the window.
Yeah. And they
They
filmed
find
themselves
out.
doing that, right?
Yeah, they had body cams of that team,
Yeah.
and he gets the footage.
Yeah.
So yeah, so in the book, in the movie, Daito never dies.
Okay.
Yeah, Daito. All right. So let's see what. So they're in the building. He's in the building. He's infiltrated. He's put up these back doors and has this access to the entire Sixer database.
Yeah.
He then proceeds to do a requisition for an antimatter bomb. And he has this plan completely in place. So it's completely automated, and he knows what's going to happen. When he looks through the Sixer database, he finds out that, oh, they kind of know where Artemis is. They know her house, they know her identity, but
Mm-hmm.
they don't know where H is. This actually speeds up his plan. So he, after seeing this, sees that they are going to act on that plan by kidnapping Artemis in real life.
Right.
So he's like, oh shit, I got to break out of this indentured servitude. So he does that. After he leaves, he notifies everybody. He's like, hey, get out of Dodge.
Yeah.
The Sixers are after us. we need to get a move on here.
Yeah.
And that's when they find out that Ogden Morrow has been spying on them.
Yeah.
So that's when the last battle's planned out. They go to the planet. His little plan goes into action. A little requisition robot takes a bomb over to the shield, blows up the shield. Last battle ensues.
So how is that part different between the movie and the book?
All right, so in the movie, like I said, Artemis had infiltrated it. So instead of her being an indentured servant that takes tech support calls, she becomes like a physical, like a porter inside inside the Oasis. So she gets logged into the Oasis, and she has to go in and basically do menial tasks for IOI. So she's actually stationed at the castle.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so since she's stationed at the castle, she sees what's going on, and she was actually there before they deployed the shield, and she sees what's going on and knows that she has to deactivate the shield. So she does the shield deactivation.
Okay.
So that's the difference. Instead of him having like this little robot go in and blow the shield up, Artemis goes into the Oasis as an IOI employee, and she deactivates the shield. And then the last battle, Tarmangaiden, comes to pass.
Right.
So everything happens. They get to the last little bit, which is a string of some challenges. They have to play Tempest. After that, he has to play Adventure, right? And get the Easter egg. And then he has to do...
is it somewhere in there where he has to... Sorry?
Monty Python.
Yeah, that's what I was just going to say. Yeah.
Yeah, Tempest, Monty Python, then Adventure.
Yeah.
And then he gets it. Halliday gives him some choice words with the self-destruct button there.
Mm-hmm.
And it says that life, reality... Well, I guess Halliday's, like, you could only get good food in real life.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how it kind of ends. I know I skipped over a lot, but there's a lot of cool little things that happen. Lots of good 80s nostalgia. It's basically like a nostalgia book.
Yeah. Yeah. Like how is that last battle different between the book and the movie? Because I know there are lots of specific things that happen in the movie with like one of them turning into an even more giant robot than the main character's robot, and they have to like work together to defeat it.
It's almost identical.
Is that the Mechagodzilla part, maybe? Yeah.
Yeah, the last battle is almost identical. I think it's different because of licensing issues.
Okay.
So all the robots that they chose are not shown. Is it in the movie? They don't get that reward where you choose a robot.
Oh, okay.
And they kind of foreshadow which robots are going to participate. Because if you remember, in the very beginning, you see the Iron Giant in H's workshop.
Oh, I didn't remember that. Oh, yeah, right. Yeah, he was making it. Yeah.
Yeah, so that becomes H's robot. Nobody else has a robot, but Daito Instead of having Ultraman capsule, his capsule turns into a Gundam.
Oh, okay.
And you can only use that Gundam for 3 minutes.
Oh, okay.
But ultimately, the one who defeats the Mechagodzilla in the movie is Artemis.
She does everything in the movie, man.
Yeah, in the movie, H helps Artemis by okay, H holds Artemis in the palm of the Iron Giant,
Okay.
and he ascends her up to the eye level of Mechagodzilla.
Okay.
She shoots out the window, and that's basically the cockpit. And she throws a grenade inside, and she blows up Sorrento piloting it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a lot different. I know the book. Really like the book's version of the last battle a lot better.
Okay.
There are a lot more cooler robots because I know their whole crew had robots, and there
Yeah.
was aside from Mechagodzilla, there were also robots on their side. They had Voltron and some Evangelions, but they get destroyed pretty much outright.
Yeah.
They don't do anything. The shield drops, everybody targets them, and they get blown to bits.
Yep.
They don't even get a chance to form Voltron.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Hmm.
so during the battle, in the book, they're about to step through the gate, and they use the Cataclysm, which blows everything the hell up.
Yep.
Same thing happens in the movie, except it wasn't because in the movie it's just one challenge. In the book, it's the gate, so they blow up everything. He gets the extra life token,
Right.
and then he grabs some flying boots and makes it to the gate. In the case of the movie, everybody dies except him, and then he goes and does the last challenge on his own.
Oh, okay. Is the does it also happen in the movie what happens in the book where I forget the dude's name, but the guy who was working with Halliday, like he didn't create the Oasis, but he was like involved in the company. He's also rich after Halliday dies, and he lets the main characters, like the main character in Artemis and H, he lets them stay on his expensive property while they do the final challenge.
Yeah, so that's after they find out that the Sixers know all of their identities and are about to kidnap them.
Yeah.
Except for H. H is someone that they don't find out about. And I think Daito also did a good job of hiding his identity as well.
Right.
But yeah, that's when inside that room, Ogden Morrow was basically eavesdropping and had been for a while. He provides them safe haven from the Sixers
Mm.
to complete the egg hunt.
Right. Okay.
In the movie, that doesn't happen.
Oh, it doesn't? Oh, okay.
No, they never go to Ogden Morrow's Rivendell-esque mansion.
Oh, okay.
Uh, they, they have a different solution. H does pick up um, Wade, but he picks up everybody, so they're all rolling around in the RV.
Oh,
And
okay.
yeah, and in the RV, they're also accessing the Oasis.
Oh, okay. Is it a self-driving RV?
No, there's so much weird. Well, there are points when they're just parked.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's not self-driving from what I have seen in the movie, or at least even they don't really explain if it's self-driving or not in the book either.
Right. Okay.
But in the movie, it's just one challenge. The only challenge is completing adventure, In the book, it's a series of three, so it's getting through the gate. You have to use three people to do it. You have to work together as a team with three people. Secondly, you got to do the Tempest challenge. Since everybody was dead, he was the only one that went through the gate, so he did that on his own. The Sixers had set up some type of camera, so they saw how they opened the gate, so they were able to follow them through the gate. After the Tempest challenge, they go through, what do they call it? Cineflix or something like that. It's like the karaoke for movies. But anyway, he goes through the Monty Python Holy Grail movie. And then once they complete that, they have to play adventure like the movie. So they have to do those three tasks.
Mm-hmm.
And in the movie, Wade does get the girl.
Yep.
At the end, same as the book. I think the book handled it better because they only meet in person after everything's done. I thought that was like a cool touch.
I like that a lot more. Yeah.
But okay, so now we pretty much discussed the plot of the whole movie. Do you think that technology, if that ever came to pass, do you think you would rather have it or it never existed?
Oh, I think I would rather have it.
But don't you think it's dangerous?
It sounds like it's potentially dangerous, but it sounds like a hell of a lot of fun too.
I don't know. I know I'd love it personally, but I always wonder of the ill effects it would have on society.
Yeah.
I wonder if the awesomeness of it outweighs those ill effects.
Yeah. Do you think it does? Or not?
If we're responsible about the technology, I think having something like the Oasis, I don't know. It can't, I don't know. It depends, man. It depends on how good of parents you have, what's your socioeconomic background, how much you value being in the real life. But I can see how the Oasis could be a potentially dangerous place for certain people.
Yeah. And the real world as we know it is different from the world in the book and the movie too, right?
Yeah, as we know it now, I think a lot of the reason that people retreated to the Oasis in the book is because the real world was just gone to shit.
Yeah.
And their options were extremely limited.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, yeah, that's one of the reasons, but I don't know. It's like, I think it would be awesome to have that, but it's potentially dangerous.
Yeah, well, you can definitely see that, like how people are getting killed for this shit. Like, that's pretty fucked up.
Well, not even just that aspect, just the aspect of shutting down real life. Like, real life becomes secondary to the Oasis.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Because we do see in a point in time, Wade shuts himself off from the real world so much that even his food, he doesn't even see who delivers it.
Yeah, yeah.
He doesn't even interact with the people who deliver his food.
Yeah, exactly. They put it inside that, like, I don't know what you would call it, an airlock or something in between one door and his, like, reinforced metal door, and he never even sees them. Yeah. And people do that.
I think it's dangerous.
People do that now too. So I can see how that, with a much more immersive world than what exists now, could definitely enhance that aspect of like people we know exist who are so obsessed with video games that they basically have as little real life as possible outside of those video games.
Yeah, because I think also he was also maintaining a job as well when he was, I think he was working 8 hours a day or something, and then
Yeah.
he did his Oasis stuff and then went to sleep.
Yeah, and he was sleeping for like 2 hours a night when he was doing that, right?
I know he was sleeping very little, and even less when he was an indentured servant.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I'd love it, but it seems a little bit. I don't know. Maybe we might be like social media is kind of preparing us for that, and I think it might happen. You know, this is
Maybe that's
sounds
what
like technology
social
that's right around the corner.
maybe that's what social media will become in a way. Like maybe it won't necessarily become a video game, but maybe it'll become the case that when you go on to social media, you have like it's like virtual reality. Like you have what seems like a real avatar in your action, and it makes it seem like you're interacting with real people or something like that.
Well, I think they attempted to do that. Like there's already these low-level versions of the Oasis that we have here in real life.
Yeah,
They're not all connected under one device like the Oasis is, because you just go and there's there's basically a giant universe that's completely interconnected, and if you have the Oasis credits, you can get around anywhere and whatnot.
and do
But
anything.
yeah, anything that is within the rules of the game itself.
Yeah,
But depending on what type of goggles you have, you know, things might appear more realistic. If you have the suit, you get to feel things. He even mentions the olfactory machine that will create smells for you.
yeah, yeah.
So there's all these immersive devices that you can tack on to make the experience more, um, I guess, more real. And I know when they go to Ogden's place, they pretty much suspend you in a giant hamster ball.
Yeah, exactly. And that's like even more immersive than when he has the omnidirectional treadmill earlier. And those omnidirectional treadmills already exist, right?
Yeah, I think they do. Do they?
I'm pretty
Well,
sure
I
they
know in
do.
virtual reality they have these. I don't know if it's a treadmill, but it looks like a pole that you run around in
Oh, okay.
so that you can move around and stuff. I'm not sure how that treadmill thing works. I know in the movie they give it to him like in the very beginning. He has a
Yeah,
treadmill.
yeah,
But in the book, he just has the gloves and visor in his hideout.
yeah.
But I don't know. That technology seems a little scary to me.
Yeah, well, that's understandable, like we were talking about, for sure.
It would take very responsible people to, I guess, to
Like
I don't know.
especially since you can do things like have a job and go to school in the Oasis. Like that would be that would make it much more attractive even to oh.
What happened? Austin?
Yeah. Oh, did Dusty get kicked out again?
Is that who you were talking to?
Yeah. I think that would be it would make it like the ability to be able to have a job and go to school through virtual reality, that would make it more attractive even to people who don't necessarily like video games. So, oh, you back there? You get kicked
About
out
that, I
again?
don't know why it likes to kick me out occasionally.
That's weird. I was just saying that that things like how you can have your job in the Oasis and how you can go to school in the Oasis are reasons that like even people who aren't necessarily that interested in video games would be interested in the Oasis. So that could be like a further thing to possibly worry about, like you were talking about.
Well, you could always substitute the Oasis with the internet. That's what we're doing now.
Yeah,
Like people can kind of go to classes online. I know that
yeah,
that's kind of available now. And
yeah.
people can work online. I know one of my jobs is working from home on a computer.
I've gotten most of my tutoring students online.
Yeah, so
All of them,
uh,
actually. Yeah.
yeah, the internet is like the precursor to the Oasis. I don't know how far along the technology is, but I see it as a plausible future in 2040 that will have these types of experience in a virtual reality. Because right now, virtual reality isn't extremely rudimentary, but we're kind of getting pretty good with it now.
Yeah.
It's like somewhat accessible to consumers if you're really looking for it. But I think as technology advances, the Oasis can probably become a reality in 20
Yeah.
years.
Well, I was gonna buy an Oculus Rift a few years ago because I thought that the idea of the one of the first virtual reality simulators sounded really awesome, but then my friend convinced me to wait until they have better versions.
They're $200 now.
Because the thing about an Oculus Rift is an Oculus Rift itself is not like you need an Oculus Rift plus a decent computer.
Yeah,
Because the Oculus Rift doesn't process the actual 3D graphics, it's just a display device.
do you need to download software onto your computer or something like that to be able to get the Oculus Rift to work?
Well, just think of this. Oculus Rift is just another version of a computer monitor.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't have any standalone like games processing. It's just a computer monitor you put on your head.
Oh, okay. That makes
So you
sense.
still need the computer.
Okay. So it's
if
more like
you
a game than a console then.
the Oculus Rift is basically just a computer monitor.
Okay.
It's a computer monitor with some motion sensing technology, but that's what it is. Like without a computer to hook it up to, an Oculus Rift doesn't do anything.
Right. Okay.
But if you want like a cheap version of like a VR experience, if you have like a current generation smartphone, you can kind of experiment with it. Like I have a S7 and you can load that into like a VR headset. And it works
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah, I've heard about that. I've never tried it though.
Yeah, it works okay. It works decently. It's just like the graphics you see are not the greatest.
Okay.
Because in that case, the phone is actually the computer plus the display device because it's processing what you're actually seeing.
Okay.
It's and then you can watch. I know there's some virtual roller coasters and stuff you could check out. It's interesting.
Are those realistic? Do they feel realistic?
No, not at
No?
all. The only ones that are realistic are people who make videos using 360 cameras or 3D cameras. Then you'll be
Okay.
able to go into their recordings and just kind of look around.
Oh, okay. And those
But as
ones
far as
are those ones have like a do they have a pretty realistic image quality, or can you still tell that it's graphics and stuff like that?
well, if it's a video, you're looking at a video basically. As the way the 3D tricks you is it just it's showing you two videos that are offset so that it appears to have depth. So when you're looking at stuff in a virtual reality setting, if you're looking at two videos that have depth, you'll actually see that kind of 3D-ness and depth in the picture.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, it looks pretty cool. I have one. I bought like a really super cheap VR headset for my phone. It was like $10. Um, it was okay. It's just like you have to adjust the lenses, and since it's super cheap, like the lenses slide around all the time, and
Oh, okay.
yeah, I just wanted to see what it looked like. If I had like a more expensive like headset, I'd probably just recommend it to people who are looking to check out
Okay.
that experience. It's interesting. It's cool when you're going into like 3D movies and like going into movies that people recorded with a 360 video is pretty cool.
Oh, okay.
I know they're doing some games. There's a lot of games too that are specifically have VR in mind.
Yeah, isn't there
Lots of
like an Unreal one or something like that?
um, I don't know. There might be an Unreal one. The ones that I've seen are usually like first-person games. So we're talking about people flying around jets in space, running around shooting people with guns and stuff like that. I know they did a Oculus mod for Skyrim.
Oh, okay. Did you try that?
Yeah. No, I don't have an Oculus. I never tried
Oh,
it.
right, right. Yeah, of course.
But yeah, it's interesting technology. I'll probably be an old geezer by the time that stuff comes around. So I'll actually have the time to try it out if I'm a retired guy.
Right.
Right now, I don't have a whole lot of time to play games.
Yeah. You think that thing might be possible? I think you said that earlier. You think that thing is well, how likely do you think that something like the Oasis is to emerge within maybe 20 years or so?
I think it's highly likely. And the reason I think it's highly likely is because we've already had Oasis prototypes. So when I mean prototypes, I'm talking about the precursors to what the Oasis will eventually become. So if you think of what are all the different little elements that we already have that we haven't put together quite like the Oasis. We have massive multiplayer online games. You know, those exist.
Mm-hmm.
We have rudimentary virtual reality. You know, that exists. What we don't have is this complete integration of because we have separate systems in which you can go into experience a game and then log out of that game. The Oasis is tying everything together, so it's almost as if Windows 10 would be like the Oasis, and all the different programs you have on there are all the access points inside the
Oh,
Oasis.
okay.
It's just you have
Yeah.
a fundamental OS that revolves around virtual reality, and that's what the
Yeah.
Oasis is.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Like you were just saying, the ingredients already exist, and it seems to be a trend with technology to kind of combine things that already exist. Like we see that with smartphones now, obviously, right? Like it's a computer, it's an iPod, it's a camera, and it's a phone and other things.
Yeah, I think in order for the Oasis to exist, some software developer will have to make an operating system that requires you to jack in via virtual reality. And it's going to be like your next Bill Gates or Apple or Google creating an entire operating system that revolves around the user interface being strictly virtual reality.
Yeah.
I just don't know when that'll happen. I feel like it would. I don't know if it's going to start with games or start in the business world. We'll just have to see. But if the Oasis ties all of that together. So to me, it's kind of like an operating system, and then you can access all these other realms of opportunity. So just like when you turn on your computer, you have games, you got websites to go to wherever you want, you got typing applications, you got all your different software packages there. So it's a matter of people creating this virtual reality system and and tying all these software packages to be compatible with virtual reality.
So do you think the operating system for what would be a virtual reality like the Oasis, do you think that would be much more difficult than the kind of stuff that we have rudimentary versions of today that you would need to use it, like the virtual reality visor and all that stuff that they go into in the movie, like gloves and maybe an omnidirectional treadmill or something like that?
Yeah, I guess in the book, your basics would be the console, the visor, and the gloves. The parallels to that in our world would be the computer, the monitor, and the keyboard and mouse.
Right.
Those are the analogs. So the visor is just a display, it's just a monitor. The haptic gloves, those are just trading it in for a keyboard and mouse, and the Oasis console is your computer. It's just different ways of output and input. So if you have you don't need a keyboard, we can give you these gloves. Okay, we have a different way to navigate. We have a different way to input our data. Instead of a monitor, which is the output, we're just going to put a visor on.
Right.
So the analogs are there. We already have these existing analogs. It's just a matter of perfecting it, because we already have devices that detect motion. You can use hand gestures to control stuff. I know there was like a big push for hand gestures and motion gestures for gaming. I know the Wii made a lot of advances in that.
Oh, right.
There's also the Kinect and the camera for the PS3, PS4 now. Those devices that were very gimmicky don't get much use today. Nobody's making games outside of dance games that use these typically for their games. Like the only time you're going to use that Kinect device is when you're playing Just Dance. You know, any of those dance games that track your body movements, or workout games that keep track if you're doing the exercises correctly.
Yeah. I
But
remember
a
that.
lot of our modern games utilize these technologies.
Yeah. Like still a lot of the most, it seems anyway, like the most popular games still operate in the way that they did before, like using a controller, or if it's a PC game, like using your PC.
Yeah, because it's the most physically economic way to process something.
Yeah.
You're not going to get a bunch of people playing a first-person shooter who want to run around and shoot people. They just
Yeah.
want to sit in a chair
I remember that was
their little analog.
yeah. I remember that was so exciting when the Wii first came out too. I remember playing a Call of Duty game on that and playing Red Steel, that like sword fighting game, and those were super exciting using the controller that way, like mimicking using a sword and mimicking firing a gun and moving and stuff like that. But then yeah, it kind of lost its appeal to a lot of people, I guess.
Yeah, I think a lot of reason why is a lot of the gaming that utilized their motion control was completely shallow. Like it wasn't something that was deeply ingrained into gaming. A lot of people saw in the very beginning of this technology is the inaccuracy of it, its inability to track something accurately. When a game isn't coded well in that respect, it could actually be a detriment instead of an improvement to have these motion controls in your game.
Right. So you think that's mostly a coding problem?
A lot of it is like game controls are extremely important. Like the accuracy of the control of the game.
Right.
So one problem is that if you're not very accurate, if you don't have that control, that you feel like that can ruin the entire game.
Yeah.
If the control is clunky, that ruins the experience. And the problem with motion controls is it's extremely complex to get right. It's difficult to get it right.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of cool concepts that if they were executed perfectly, they would have been awesome games. There's this game, I think it came out for the Xbox. It was a sequel to a game. I forgot the name. It was the very first version of this game that came out had a giant ass controller that I think was like cost $200.
Holy shit.
And the controller basically looked like a cockpit.
Wow.
Oh, okay. The game was called Steel Battalion. So when you get the time, look up Steel Battalion controller.
Okay.
And you'll see what I'm talking about. It's like this crazy console-sized controller. Anyway, they made a sequel to it that only used motion controls instead of this giant controller that cost $200. Now,
Okay.
yeah, it would have been cool if the motion detection was accurate, but it was horrendous.
Okay.
And that destroyed the game. If you can't control a game, there's nothing more frustrating than a game you can't control because the controls are poorly executed.
Oh, I'm looking at that controller right now. That is really huge and complex. Holy shit.
Yeah, so they made a second game where you just do all of those things, but you motion control it. And
Okay.
it was a disaster because of the accuracy of the motion controls was not there.
Okay.
So we'll have to see. I don't know. I wanted to do this virtual reality experience thing when I was still in San Diego. I didn't get the chance to, but it was like a Marvel experience. So you go into it, you do like this 360 virtual reality thing. But I don't know. One of these days, I really have to experience like high-end virtual reality. I'll probably be just completely blown away by it and want to spend all my time in that world.
Yeah. I can see how it would be really attractive for sure.
Well, I think that world exists a little bit. Like social media is kind of that. Massive multiplayer games are kind of that. But to see it all integrated under one umbrella, that would be a monumental task.
Yeah.
And we'll have to see how cheap virtual reality technology becomes in the future.
Yeah, it seems like it's well, how expensive would you say it is right now?
Oh, I think your basic Oculus is like $300.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
that's just for the visor. That's not. You still need a computer that runs these games.
Right. And do you
And
need
there's
to have
also,
like a good a really good computer, like a gaming computer for that?
well, if you want to get good graphics, you do.
Okay.
You have to have a decent computer, that's for sure.
But not like Alienware or anything like that?
It depends on what you're gonna run. My current computer runs Skyrim on the highest settings, but my computer, I built it in 2012,
Oh, okay.
and Skyrim is not a new game either.
Right. Wow,
So
when did
really,
that come out?
2010 or 11, I
Oh,
think.
okay. I didn't realize it was that old.
Yeah, Skyrim's pretty old now.
Okay.
Um, but yeah, it really depends on what you want to play.
Okay.
And you have to remember too, like you could play almost anything on a medium system. It's just that depending on what you're going to play, you might have to downgrade your visual settings for your games, your display settings.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like how the main character talks about that in the book, how because he can't afford to have like the better visor and whatnot, that you can still see that the graphics aren't quite as good in the Oasis as they could be.
Yeah, especially when he's still in school on Ludus, like you could definitely tell that the surroundings were digitally created. Like when he gets his super system, he finds it difficult to tell the Oasis from reality. It becomes that crisp. But you also have to make sure too, like people have to make this stuff. So unless you can get an AI to create a construct of a 3D object as complex as an office building, then there's going to be a lot of man hours of people creating these 3D objects.
Yeah. Do you think that'll eventually happen? Like AIs will be doing coding for things like that?
I think if, yeah, that's a really good question. I think if one were to take photographs and create them into 3D objects, probably AIs would be the best at it.
Okay.
If you're just creating stuff from scratch, then people are good at that because, of course, imagination. Like if you
Right.
just want to create something, you can just make it. But if you have say you want to create a replica of a building based off of photographs, it'd probably be quicker to get an AI to construct that than a person.
Like
If you
now?
could create not, I don't know if now, but possibly in the near future.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even not in video games, but even in movies, like when you watch special features on movies that have a lot of CG in them, you talk about that you can see the people who are responsible for that talk about how complex it is to create that stuff. But even like how but even that sort of technology has progressed. Like if you look at like what it took to create Gollum in the Lord of the Rings movies, Andy Serkis had to wear this like green suit with like little fluffy balls all over his skin, and then when he reprised that role in The Hobbit, he just had to have those tiny little fluffy balls all over his face, and you didn't even have to wear the suit.
Yeah. It's making it more convenient because a lot of computers are or a lot of things are programmed smarter. So, like motion capture technology, in the case of Andy Serkis, the green screen, some people still use green screens for things, but if you just want to create a motion capture, like you don't even really need green screens anymore. You just need the mocap balls.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
but yeah, and even then, if you talk about the new technology where they're taking people's faces and making them say things. You know that there's no, you don't even need the person anymore.
Yeah, like like how you can see like videos of Obama or something just saying things that he never actually said in real life, or
Yeah,
or like there are people who make videos who just have people having conversations that they never even had in real life.
yeah, you just need archival footage now. So
Yeah,
it's yeah, technology is increasing in that way, and I guess in the future, if we're talking about this Oasis technology, it's probably entirely possible that we're going to see interact with like dead celebrities
yeah,
and presidents and historical figures. I think one of the most amazing things that I really loved about the Oasis technology was how amazing school sounded.
yeah. That's what I was thinking too. Like, man, if that existed, I would have more of a
Or
desire
to
to
look
actually
forward to
go
go to
to.
school, right?
Yeah, exactly. I
Yeah,
would
because
want to
he
do.
explained it so awesome. I was like, wow, it's like he said it's like going on a field trip for every class.
Yeah, exactly.
And I thought that was probably the most amazing and beneficial part of the Oasis, and I think that's why it would be pretty awesome.
Yeah,
But like I said, there's also the other aspects of it that aren't so great.
yeah. Well, like I feel like if that sort of thing existed, if I could actually go and see what it was like in ancient Egypt and actually go and see how the pyramids were built, for example, that would be a lot more interesting than reading books about people speculating about it.
Yeah, because there's a difference between reading it in the book, watching a movie, or seeing a 3D replica in which your point of view is expressed in that virtual reality.
Yeah.
Like it gives you more of a sense of how it was. That's more so than reading a book and more so than watching a movie.
Yep.
Like if you watch videos of people on roller coasters or read about roller coasters and then you stick on a VR headset of a roller coaster, there's so much of a big difference experientially. Like it's very close to the real thing if you're wearing a VR headset. The only difference is you don't get to feel gravity the
Oh,
same
okay.
way as like if you're watching a roller coaster on a VR headset. It looks like you're going along in a roller coaster, but you don't have that sense of gravity that a roller coaster has. And then you could also watch roller coaster videos on YouTube. Like, oh, that looks cool. But
Yeah.
it's way different when you're immersed and you can see depth.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, I
then if
can
you're
see.
reading about a roller coaster, that doesn't seem terribly exciting.
Yeah, exactly. I can see how stuff like that sense of gravity and whatnot can be really hard to mimic in a virtual environment.
Yeah, that's probably the hardest thing to mimic. And I think they captured it well in the books and the movie, and that you do have a suspended hap chair and suit.
Yeah,
So it has the ability to like suspend you off the ground if needed, you know. So it's interesting. But that also sounds very expensive as well. Especially like the hap seat and rigs that they were talking about. As the one that Ogden Morrow had, that one's not in the movie, so you don't get to see what that looks like.
how expensive were those? I don't remember.
I don't remember him giving it a price tag, but I remember him saying like most of his expenses were the upkeep of his suits and stuff like that. Like he was barely getting by with his job plus his endorsements.
Right.
So he was putting a lot of money into it,
Yeah.
and they were fairly expensive.
Yeah.
Just don't really know how much exactly in the book.
Yeah, I mean it looks like pretty expensive technology in the movie.
Yeah, in the movie, They don't even show like the most expensive one. Like, I
Oh,
guess you could say that Sorrento has an expensive one, but the one that Ogden Morrow had was had the hamster ball thing in it,
right.
and Sorrento's is just like some chair that he sits in.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just a chair.
Yeah.
He's not running around or jumping around. He's just sitting there.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, but would you recommend this book to anybody?
Yeah, for sure. I thought it was a great book, especially like I said, like the whole experience of the Oasis, and then the way that it ends too, with Wade finally meeting that girl who he falls in love with, and then his hero, or his deity, really, who he worships throughout the whole book, his virtual representation telling him that the real world is the only place where you can find true happiness.
Yeah, that is the moral of the story, isn't it?
Yep.
And I guess it's true. Like, you can find some happiness in a virtual reality, but it's not the same.
Yeah.
Not the same
Even
at
when
all.
something like the Oasis exists.
I'd love it though.
Yeah.
I know it's like a double-edged sword. I could see the dangers of it, but I know that I personally would have a blast.
Yeah, me too, man. Like they did that's one thing that I liked about the movie was seeing visual representations of the Oasis, because I have a good imagination, but it's still hard to get your imagination to visualize that world in the way that a movie can replicate it.
Yes. Okay, so there's like different Easter eggs in the movie too. So I think I told you that you'll get to see things in the movie that they don't talk about in the book at all, like the different video game characters that pop up in the movie.
Yeah.
I think there's a ton of different characters that pop up in the movie, but in the book they don't really describe, because you're not going to describe everything that's being seen. Especially, there's not a whole lot of heavy description of setting inside of the Oasis in the book.
Yeah.
They do use set pieces, but the set pieces that are used are set pieces that were already created, so there's already references to them. We're talking about, when it goes inside the building in Blade Runner, or, this dungeon for the first challenge.
Yeah.
And then these other worlds, like one of my favorite worlds was Arcade. And when you go on the surface, it looks like Battlezone, which is just like this desolate vector graphic world where the mountains never get any closer, no matter how much you run towards them.
Right.
So it does a good job at describing stuff like that. But and then the basement that they hang out in.
Yeah.
But yeah, the movie, there are some additional settings that aren't really in the book, and there's also some settings that are missing from the book.
Yeah. What I remember you were telling me before, uh that you noticed a lot of those like pop culture references between the book and the movie, and like it sounded like you kind of preferred the older ones more because they were more like 80s references. um I like it. I don't like, I guess I can partially understand why they made more updated, they use more updated versions of those in the movies. But I mean, they could have still had the 80s stuff, I think, because
Well, they did. They did
yeah,
have 80s stuff in
they
there.
did have some 80s stuff for sure. Yeah, that's
Well,
true.
that all revolved around the Gunters, because when you're visualizing the Oasis in the movie, you're not just seeing Gunters, you're just seeing regular Oasis inhabitants. So that now that you have to see these regular Oasis inhabitants, not all of them are Gunters, so some of them are going to have more contemporary um, characters.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that totally makes sense. In the movie, you do see all these current contemporary pop culture characters being displayed.
yeah.
Like I know there's Master Chief. You'll see him running around.
Oh, I must have missed him.
Yeah, there's Tracer from um, one of Blizzard games. What's that damn game I never played? That's super
World of
popular.
Warcraft?
No, it's a different. It's a shooter game that came out. It's super popular. I never played it. It's made by Blizzard. I know the name, but it's on the tip of my tongue. I just don't know. Battle something. I forget.
Oh, it's not
But I know.
StarCraft or Warcraft?
No, it's like their most recent super success.
Oh, okay. I
It's a
must.
new IP. It's a new IP. It's new. It's been out for about 4 years, I think.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it shows my knowledge of video games.
Yeah, Chaser is the character. It's this female character, but um, no, Tracer is the name of the character. No, I think I saw Spawn. I saw Goro, which isn't recent. That's old as hell.
Oh yeah, the four-armed guy from Mortal Kombat.
That's in the movie, yeah. Um,
Yeah.
they had, well, you didn't get to see the last battle. There's a shitload in the last battle.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then oh yeah, Akira was in the movie, but not the book.
Oh yeah, that's right, isn't it? Yeah.
Her motorcycle is not in the. I was like, oh shit, that's pretty cool that they put something like that in
Yeah.
this movie,
I like
but it's
that
not in the book.
I like that they put Tetsuo's motorbike from Akira in there. I actually coincidentally just rewatched that movie recently.
The only thing I hate about the movie Akira is that they redubbed it, even though the redub is correct. What burned into my memory is like the original dub of them yelling, Tetsuo, Kaneda, and they don't say it like that anymore. I think it's like Canada.
Oh,
It used to
really?
be, yeah, they used to say Kaneda. And they don't say
Oh,
Kaneda anymore because they
I,
redubbed it because they did not phonetically say their names correctly.
I must have only seen the original dub.
Where it says Kaneda,
Yeah.
because they did change it up to uh, Canada.
Okay.
Canada. It's not Kaneda, Tetsuo. They're just yelling at each. It's like they're always yelling their names at each other
Yeah. Yeah.
at the end of the movie, at least.
Yeah. Like they say Tetsuo and Kaneda a lot.
And then the Bigfoot truck that H has.
Yeah.
That's an '80s reference, kind of.
Is it?
Yeah, the Bigfoot monster truck. It's really big in the '80s.
Oh, okay.
That truck is definitely from the '80s.
I didn't even I didn't even realize that was like an 80s thing. I thought it was just like a I don't know, kind of a cultural thing.
Yeah, but Bigfoot monster trucks were very big in the '80s.
Okay.
I think there was even a cartoon based off of it in the '80s.
Okay.
Um, oh yeah, and then I guess in his garage they showed like different like spacecrafts that H owned,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
like X-wings and Millennium Falcons. I think he had.
And
I know he had.
I like how Wade has a DeLorean in both the book and the movie.
Yeah, I'm glad they kept that vehicle. And actually, I liked that he uses the DeLorean a lot more in the movie. Because he only uses the DeLorean like in the beginnings of the books, and then he moves on to like different spacecrafts.
Yeah.
In the movie, throughout the whole movie, he sticks with the DeLorean even till the very end.
Okay.
Um, he never gets the Firefly transport. instead of actually Daito ends up having the Firefly transport.
Oh, okay.
He never gets an X-wing. I remember he gets one in the book, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. He never gets that base, that meteor base, his home base in the movie.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff that gets cut because you can only do so much in 2.5 hours, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, the whole isolation. I think the isolation in the book that Wade goes through, I think that's probably one of the most important parts of the book
Yeah,
to
I
show the
agree.
downsides of this technology. They
Yeah.
do not show that in the movie. We, you don't really see the effects of the downsides of the Oasis in the movie.
Oh, that's too bad.
Yeah, you don't see how it creates this fake, and you do, but not as bad as it's portrayed in the book. In the book, you show him at his complete lowest. He's completely isolated from society, he has no friends. He's
Yeah.
obviously depressed and taking medication.
Yeah.
So I think it's much more emphasized in the book over the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're gonna have to finish up that movie. Last
Yeah.
battle scene is pretty fun.
Yeah, I'll
Oh
probably
yeah,
do that
IROC
tonight.
is really different too.
Is it?
Remember that character in the book IROC?
Yeah, I think so.
He's like H's friend that goes to H's school, and he's
Oh,
like a
yeah, yeah.
wannabe gunter.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, in the movie, he actually has a big role.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you remember in the movie, it's the guy that wears like the armor that has like holes in the eyes. He has
Oh,
like three.
yeah.
Yeah, that's IROC
Right.
in the movie.
Oh, oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. He does have a much bigger role. Yeah.
So he's like a bounty hunter,
Mm-hmm.
but in the book, he's just H's stupid kind of. It's not really H's friend. He's like, as H does kind of say, the only reason he's here is to what does he say? He says he's the reason I allowed him to be in here
I
is
don't
to
remember.
basically show what it really means to be a gunter or something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because I don't think H likes IROC at all.
Right.
Well, nobody really sounds like they like IROC, but I think it's mostly just to humiliate him in front of people.
Yeah, that is interesting that they kind of add that add that much of a role for that character to play in the book. Like there's more like there that definitely doesn't happen, or I mean in the movie rather, like you were saying, that doesn't happen in the book. It's interesting, like the things that they took out and the things that they kept and the things that they replaced with the stuff that they removed.
Yeah, and another thing they don't do in the movie, because I guess you don't get to see H, as I know, they don't go into H's background at all in the movie. And in the
Oh,
book, they do dive a bit about H's story is actually pretty sad.
yeah.
Um, and they don't cover any of that at all in the movie.
Oh, okay.
As H's story, her avatar is a white man, and she was told by her mom that in order to get privileges and stuff, it'd be better just to be a white person in the Oasis. Um, of course, I don't know how much of a lefty Ernest Klein is, but that sounds like white privilege stuff right there. But anyway,
Yeah.
um, there's that. Plus, her mom finds out that she's a lesbian and disowns her.
Right. Yeah.
And that is like the super sad existence of H. So H becomes kind of like an Oasis superstar in her own right, and becomes like, because even in the book they mention that H is pretty well known.
Yeah.
Um, and she's pretty good at games. I don't know what you want to call H, a he, she, whatever. And in the Oasis, it's he. In the real world, it's she.
You have to say Z or Zer.
Well, that's only if that's only if they're non-binary. H isn't non-binary. It's just he in the Oasis and a she out of the Oasis.
Yeah. I bet that probably happens a lot in the Oasis.
Well, it happens a lot in gaming.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I remember in when I was playing Final Fantasy, my character was female.
Okay.
And I never told anybody I wasn't. You get special advantages for being a girl or pretending to be one at least.
Oh, do you?
Yes. People help you out more.
Oh, that makes sense. Maybe I'll get to know her.
Yeah, and then when people start bugging you, you have to tell them, "Hey, don't tell anybody I'm a dude." And no,
I don't. No, I don't want to see your dick. Sorry.
But yeah, her story is very depressing.
Yeah.
But when they meet, I love that when they meet, they're like kind of extremely nervous.
Yeah.
And then they're like, dude, this is my best friend. Like, what am I doing?
Yeah.
But Wade seemed to be like taking it pretty well. She was super nervous. I think the reason why she was super nervous is, remember, she said Artemis could be a 300-pound dude named Chuck. And there's a little foreshadowing there.
Yeah.
Yeah, people can be completely different than what they portray in the Oasis, and she's kind of that shining example of that. And I remember like Wade being extremely violated because they shared like these stories about talking about hot girls and stuff like that. But then again, H is a lesbian, so she was extremely sincere when we were talking about these things. So I guess it's not so bad because she wasn't lying; she was actually telling the truth.
Yeah,
just wasn't telling the truth about whether she was a guy or not. But at least those feelings we discussed are sincere.
Yeah, exactly.
So I really enjoyed their friendship in the book as well as the movie. I think in the movie, it's great. They have because they don't disconnect like they do in the book.
Yeah.
So, that friendship's always there in the movie. And then when they meet each other, it's not as tense as a moment in the book. They just see each other and then they get over it really very quickly because they're under in the book, he's escaping and she rescues him.
Right.
So they really don't have that time to like get over this awkward physical meeting that they do in the book.
Yeah.
So yeah, I liked it. It's a great book. There's a lot of cool stuff. I think the relationship building is pretty decent in the book, not so great in the movie. It seems super awkward in the movie. I guess the good thing about the movie is that H and Parzival already have an established relationship, so you can already see that right in the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And in the movie, it's just he meets Artemis for the first time, and then like 30 minutes later, he's professing his love for her.
Yeah.
What's going on?
That was like really extreme.
Yeah, if someone hadn't at least read the book, they'd be like, what the hell is this guy doing?
Yeah, like he does get obsessed with her in the book, but not that fucking quickly.
Well, he gets obsessed with her in the book, but at least they have like this long extreme Like they have communications, you see their relationship actually building. Like one chapter in the book, you don't see that in the audiobook because I know
Yeah.
that's the method you chose. There's a whole chapter that is through text messages to each other back and forth.
Oh, okay. Yeah,
Like an entire chapter.
they do explain in the audiobook that they start talking to each other and then they start exchanging like longer emails with each other and then they start talking more and more often and then they eventually are talking to each other once a day.
Yeah, and then they're hanging out with each other and
Yeah.
in like H's basement or kind of going out on like dates, kind of like virtual dates.
Yeah.
And then that whole thing at the nightclub happens, and they're like, you know what? We really got to stick to the prize, and all this lollygagging around is uh, is not helping us find the egg.
Yeah.
And Wade gets depressed. And the movie doesn't get like super depressed like he does in the book. But the funny thing, okay, here's the weird thing about the movie. I don't know how far you got into it. Right after that scene happens at the nightclub, they meet in real life.
Yeah, no, I saw that part. Yeah, that's that's one thing that I thought was that I thought
and
was strange. Like they
and
made
she immediately apologizes about her saying, "Oh, kind of blowing
yeah,
him off," and
yeah,
they immediately pick up their relationship right there.
yeah. Like they break up for a long time in the book. Like yeah, like you were saying
Yeah,
earlier.
it's like, oh, 1 minute he gets rejected, and then they meet in real life 10 minutes later, and they
Yeah,
resume their relationship.
yeah. And
So weird.
like I was saying, like one of my favorite parts of the book was the ending, and one of the major reasons was that that was when he met Artemis for the first time.
Yeah, yeah, that's true. And I'd say everybody, if you want to read a fun book, check it out. The audiobook is amazing. I highly recommend that.
Yeah.
How do you rate the audiobook?
Mm, I don't know, like I would say like 7 or 8 out of 10.
Yeah, I think it does a pretty good job. At least they got a nerd to read it.
Yeah, Will Wheaton.
Yeah, so I know
It's
there's like sound effects and stuff in the book that only somebody familiar with the material would make. I know they make sound effects in the book, right? Like,
a little bit, yeah.
yeah, there's like references and voices and stuff that requires a little bit of knowledge of those references to play
Yeah.
out in audio form. Like voicing, like I know they make pop culture references and jokes.
Hmm.
So, you have to be familiar with those references in order to actually perform them in an audiobook well.
Yeah. Yeah. I liked how also they briefly they briefly talk at one point in the book about how politics is in the world in that era and how every politician is a celebrity now and how I think Wade went to vote one time and he just went to vote for Will Wheaton because he wanted Will Wheaton to be a politician again. I thought that was cool that they that
Oh, yeah, Inception. So Will Wheaton had to read about
yeah,
himself being a politician in the world of Oasis.
yeah,
Yeah, that was pretty funny. I remember that.
yeah.
But yeah, it's a pretty fun book. I recommend it to anybody who loves games and nerdy, geeky stuff. I am gonna read his other book, Ernest Cline's other book. It's called Armada.
Oh, is it out?
Yeah, it's been out for a while.
Oh, is it one that he wrote before this one, or like I thought I
Armada's
heard?
his, I think it's his second book. Came
Oh,
after.
okay. Because I thought I had looked up. Because when you look up Ready Player One, it says Ready Player One series #1. So I was looking up to see if there's a second one, but I thought it said that Ernest Cline was still writing it, but I guess I must be mistaken.
No, Armada is not in the Ready Player One universe.
Oh, it's not. Oh, okay. That's why
Oh.
I was confused. Okay.
No, it's a separate story.
Oh, okay.
I heard it's much of the same. I also heard it's not as good as Ready Player One, but I'm willing to check it out anyway.
Oh, okay. What do you
No.
know about it?
I know that it's a lot like The Last Starfighter. Are you familiar with that movie?
No, I don't think so.
Um, okay, so Last Starfighter. Let me switch devices here. Oops, accidentally. Can't believe I accidentally did that. Okay. All right. Oh, my phone. Come on. Stop being slow. Okay, so The Last Starfighter is a movie where a kid plays an arcade game. Aliens see that he's good at playing this arcade game, so they make him a commander of a space army, I guess.
Oh, okay.
It's a similar premise,
Right.
but I haven't read the book, so I can tell you a whole lot about it.
Okay.
But when I get it, I think I'm going to get the hardback,
Okay.
hardcover, because it's cheap.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Because I think the hardcover is $15 on Amazon.
Oh, that's pretty cheap for a hardcover.
Yeah, I paid $12 for the paperback of Ready Player One.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, only $15 for a hardcover. I'm gonna get that one.
Yeah, yeah, might as well.
I also have access to the audiobook, but I don't know if I want to just read it first or listen to it first.
Oh, okay. Did you say that you did both with Ready Player One?
Yeah, so the first time I went through on the audiobook.
Okay.
I finished the paperback just a week or two ago in preparation for this because I wanted to have it fresh in my mind again. And it's such an awesome story that I really didn't mind reading it again. So I actually
Okay.
listened to it earlier this year and then read it like a couple weeks ago.
Okay.
But Armada, second book, not in the Ready Player One universe, but Ready Player One is supposed to have some type of sequel. So
Yeah.
I thought it got wrapped up pretty nicely. So I'm
Yeah.
not sure how the sequel's going to go.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was thinking. I wonder where they would go with it because it does seem like they wrapped up the story pretty well.
Yeah, because one in the book, he's at the lowest class of Oasis denizen, and he becomes the god of it at the end. So where is he
Yeah.
going to go from there?
Yeah, like, how can you have more than unlimited powers?
Yeah, I guess I don't know. We'll have to see. It's we'll have to see how it works. Like,
Yeah.
maybe it's not going to be a Wheel of Time, but we'll see.
Yeah.
All right, so I think we're. Did you have any other last thoughts about Ready Player One?
No, not really. I think we covered pretty much everything all the main points and everything that I thought was really interesting.
Yeah, me too. I'd love to see this technology. I wish I could just travel 20 years in the future and see this stuff already.
That would be so cool.
I My prediction is that Amazon's going to control the Oasis.
Yeah?
It's going to be the creator of the Oasis of our time.
Yeah?
See, it's going to be Amazon, Apple, or Microsoft. One of them three are going to create the modern day Oasis in the future, unless some
Yeah.
other company comes along and does it.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Yeah, that makes sense.
I think it'd be likely probably to be either Google. I think it's going to be Google. I'm going to take Amazon out of the picture because they don't have an operating system. It's going to be either Apple, Microsoft, or Google.
Yeah.
One
Yeah,
of them three
probably.
are going to create it.
Yeah. I wonder if they're like if whoever creates it first will start kind of like a newer version of the console war that already exists between Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo.
Well, I think there's going to be multiple entrants into that technology. It's not going to be just one oasis like it is in the world of Ready Player One. There's probably going to be competitors in that space for sure.
Yeah, that makes
But
sense.
it'll be interesting when it comes. I think it's coming. I think it's coming in some respect, but we'll see how it works.
Yeah.
All right, so back to regular stuff. What are you reading, Andrew?
Well, I'm reading actually one of the things I'm reading right now is the Unabomber Manifesto.
Like
Because
the actual manifesto of the Unabomber?
yeah, you can find it online. It's
How many pages is it?
it's pretty long. Like I think he actually published it as kind of like an academic paper. So I think it's 30,000 words or something like that. Yeah. And
Wow.
it's pretty interesting. I think like he makes a lot of good points. He's talking about how technology has benefits, but it also divides people, and it can cause depression. And one thing that's kind of similar about Ready Player One actually is he talks about how it has benefits, but it gets people addicted to it, and then it leads to depression, and then it leads to people having uh, bad social relationships in the real world. And he was writing this in the 90s before social media existed too. So I think,
Wow.
yeah. And
I have to
well,
check this out.
yeah, it's pretty interesting. You can find it online just by searching it. Um, I'm also reading Spectres of Marx by Derrida. He's like one of those
Oh,
early. Sorry?
is that hard reading?
Um, I like, well, some parts of it, yeah, because Derrida can be really long-winded sometimes, but I think he has some really interesting points about interesting critiques of Marxism. And like at the beginning, for example, he's talking about how time is out of joint, and he uses some quotes from Hamlet to illustrate that point about how it's hard to tell like how much of the present is related to the past and how much it's related to the future and stuff like that. So he makes some really interesting points. And I'm also reading a book that Hayden Bruce sent me, which is kind of a little bit about the history of philosophical pragmatism, and then it goes into ideas like philosophical anthropology, and I think the term is metaphysical anthropological pragmatist arguments, which is an interesting concept that I had never heard of before.
Sounds
So
complicated.
yeah, yeah, it's interesting though. I like learning more about philosophy like that.
Yeah, I'm gonna get my first dip into that. Not like, well, I guess right now I'm going over. I barely started the History of Sexuality, Volume One by Foucault.
Okay.
Um, Getting into that, I think I've read probably the first 10 or 15 pages. I have
Okay.
noticed, I can't say that it's difficult to read. I'm not saying that at all, but his prose is odd.
Yeah. He tends to have
It's
really long run-on sentences. And I think some of it might be a translation issue because sometimes he uses meanings of words that seem kind of strange.
Yeah, I think that might be the case as well. I, it, the, I guess there's probably something lost when there's always something lost when you translate from one language to the other,
Yeah.
whether it's cultural or some type of linguistic cultural construct. But I'm reading it. It's interesting stuff. Right now, it's really basic. It's basic intro arguments about the history of how sex is talked about. I guess it's not the actual history of sexuality. I guess that's kind of like a misnomer from what I'm reading so far.
Yeah.
From what I'm gleaning so far, it seems like he's talking about the history of discourse about sexuality or um, the cultural discourse as well as like um, I guess repression of it. It's interesting. It's like stuff I kind of already know, I guess, because of course, there's a lot of the sexual repression throughout history.
Mm-hmm.
But he also points out, so far from what I've read, how certain aspects of sexuality have changed
Yeah.
and how the discourse about that has changed
Yeah.
and how it's viewed differently in certain parts of time. But of course, this is only the only problem, I guess, with it is that he's a Westerner, so we're only seeing it from a Western perspective.
Yeah.
We're not seeing it from perspectives in other cultures he does not belong to. I guess that's fine with me since I'm technically part of the culture in whole that he's speaking about.
Mm-hmm.
But it's mainly about Western views of sexuality and how that has changed and how the discourse has changed. Like I'm barely into it. I'm not that far into it at all. But I have
That's
to ramp that up because that's the next book we're going to be talking about.
Yeah.
So,
Well, that's
and
basically
it's
the
not
main.
long either.
Yeah, it's only like 200 pages or so. And exactly what you were just describing is basically the main idea of the book. Just like how
Mm,
cultural perceptions about sex have changed throughout history, basically, due to a variety of different factors.
mm.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm working on now. Like I'm going to 4 books right now. So that I'm also picked up a book from my library called Bad Blood, and it's about a company called Theranos and its CEO named Elizabeth Holmes. If you're not familiar with Elizabeth Holmes, she was probably like the richest woman in the world at some point in time.
Oh, okay.
She was running like a startup company called Theranos, which was um, a medical device company that was making blood tests that only required a pinprick. There
Oh,
was
I think
so
I've
much.
heard about this.
Yeah, she modeled herself off of Steve Jobs, so she wore turtlenecks when she made her speeches and stuff. The strangest thing is that she artificially deepened her voice. Like she spoke in a deeper than natural voice on purpose. So if you
Oh,
ever see like interviews of her speaking, that's not her natural voice.
oh, okay.
She sounds like a really deep voice woman, but that's just a show. That's not her natural voice range.
Maybe she does that. The idea behind that is that so men will take her more seriously.
Yeah, that's something that is portrayed in the book, but oh man, that company was so horribly run, so deceptive. They fleeced so many different people out of money. It's an interesting book to see how that company was run, and they had a lot of talented people that were working from the company. Like she got people from Apple working for them, like the extremely smart engineers from MIT. Like she had so many talented employees that most of them left because she was a shitty manager. Like they
And
had a very high turnover rate.
oh, okay. And was there like I don't know if I'm remembering this correctly, but was there something in that story about how it turned out that the technology didn't actually work very well or something like that?
Yeah, I'm only about 30% of the book, but it's shit. She made a bunch of promises that she could not basically live up to. She lied to a lot of her investors about what the technology could actually do. In
Okay.
actuality, it could only do a very small amount. It could check your blood, certainly, it could do that. But she promised like 190 different diagnostic tests that this machine could do. And
Whoa.
from what I'm reading, it can successfully perform four, but not consistently. Like
Wow.
it fails all the damn time, and it's like the buggiest piece of equipment ever. And she got people to invest in it. Like Walgreens was one. She was going to partner with Walgreens to sell this thing. And she met with like the executives of Walgreens twice to vet the technology, and both times she didn't show them the lab, and she never allowed them to um, get results from the actual tests because she took some of these machines and she had um, some of the CEOs take the blood test. And when the CEOs asked for the blood test, she was like, "Oh no, I can't do that. I can only send them to doctors." And one of the people on the board was the actual medical MD, and she still didn't send it to him. So yeah, it's basically like a fraudster. She had well intentions, but her she couldn't do what was promised, and she lied to a bunch of investors about what the actual device could do.
Wow. Okay.
It's an interesting book. It's called Bad Blood. And what else am I reading? Oh yeah, I'm reading Restless Wave, I think it's called. It's the last book that John McCain wrote before he died.
Oh, okay.
He was actually dying of cancer during the book.
Oh, okay.
It's good. Um, I like it. I thought I wasn't gonna like it because I thought it was gonna be like super Republican, but he's actually like pretty progressive in a lot of areas.
Oh, really?
Yeah, he's pretty progressive when it comes to immigration. He's not progressive about war at all. He's very much,
Pro-war.
uh, I wouldn't say he's pro-war. I'd say he's pro-national security.
Okay.
And if war is a means to an end to national security, then he is pro that.
Okay.
I wasn't also aware that he had such a huge foreign policy presence. Like he was traveling the world all the time, almost as if he was the Secretary of State.
Oh, I didn't know that either.
Yeah, a lot of his books talks about how he made a lot of trips to the Middle East, how he got to know a lot of the people who were responsible in the Arab Spring,
Oh,
how he was responsible in talks with Gaddafi and all that crazy Libya stuff. I was like, oh wow, I didn't know he was such a player internationally. And I
yeah,
thought
me
that was
neither.
really interesting parts of his book was when he's talking about his role in, I guess, the troop surge for Iraq and his role for um, I guess the Benghazi incident and some other incidents regarding Libya. I'm about halfway done with the book, but I thought that was interesting. Talks about campaign finance, which I really liked,
Oh, okay.
because he um, did a bipartisan bill for campaign finance. One of the things I like about McCain as well. One thing he's very progressive about is the use of torture, and I know that was kind of a big deal during the Bush presidency.
Yeah.
So he really speaks out against those policies that were enacted during after 9/11, where they were
Oh.
torturing because
Oh, okay.
he has personal experience with being tortured. So
Yeah. Yeah, it was torture
when
during Vietnam, right?
yeah, and if someone knows torture, then it's him. And he says that all the acts that we've enacted against these terrorists at Guantanamo Bay and Abu Ghraib are definitely torture.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
no if and about it. Like waterboarding, sleep deprivation, that's all torture. He doesn't care what they say about that. Those aren't things that abide with the Geneva Convention.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
the
for
only
sure.
reason they get past that Geneva Convention is because terrorists aren't considered war combatants.
Oh, really? What are they considered
Yeah,
as?
because they're not state actors.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if they're not state actors, they don't abide to the Geneva Convention. You can't like Geneva Convention is about war conducted between nations, and terrorists have no nation, so they're not protected.
Oh, okay. What was that bipartisan bill about that he was talking about?
um, he he's done a few. The one that I like, well, I liked all of the ones that he proposed in the book. One of them was called the McCain-Feingold, and that was for campaign finance. It was a reform for that.
Okay.
Um, so that's a campaign finance reform bill. Another bill he did was one with Ted Kennedy for immigration, and he was really progressive. He calls out a lot of like the crazy Tea Partiers who are really extremely hardline immigration. He pleads a case for why immigration is good and why even aspects of illegal immigration is good and how you should treat people who want to be Americans.
Oh, that is pretty
So
progressive. Okay.
it's he's really progressive. Well, he was known to vote against his party sometimes. Like if you remember, one of his last major votes was against the repeal of Obamacare.
Oh, I don't think I even knew that actually.
Yeah, it was a shocker because that's one of the reasons why the repeal did not go, because he voted against it.
Oh, okay.
He was the thing I liked about him is in the book he really promotes why bipartisan action is the most important thing you should seek, because if you're not seeking bipartisan action on anything, nothing gets done.
Yeah, well, that makes a lot of sense. Seems like a lot of people don't understand that.
Yeah, so a lot of his friends were Democrats.
Oh,
He
okay.
made a lot of friends with Democrats. Before he picked Palin to run for his VP, he actually picked a Democrat to run as his
Oh.
vice president.
What was the or who was the Democrat?
Oh, so he was going to pick Joe Lieberman, but he was advised not to pick Joe Lieberman because he thought it would people who are running his campaign thought it would alienate like Republicans from voting for him.
So Sarah Palin's better?
Not really. He wanted to have Well, there were obvious reasons that he picked her. Because one, you know, he was running against Obama and Biden, so he wanted to get somebody fresh in there, and he thought someone like Palin would be that type of person. Because Obama, he didn't have a whole lot of political experience. He was a state senator and then a U.S. senator.
Right.
And then Palin, she was like a city mayor, and then she went to a governor. So she didn't have too much political experience. So he wanted to get somebody fresh in there. So, but anyway, it's an interesting book. I recommend it. I'm not done with it. There's a lot of military strategy in the book.
Oh, that
He
sounds
talks a lot about
interesting.
military strategy regarding Afghanistan and Iraq. That might turn a lot of people off, but I found it pretty interesting that when he talked about those things. Talks about like his campaigns, like his campaign when he ran against Obama, his other campaigns where he ran for president as well. So it's actually a really good book. I thought I wasn't is going to present like policies that I wasn't going to like too much at all, but I kind of understand his rationale for being a warmonger, I guess some people call him.
Oh,
I
okay.
get his rationale. I get why, though. And he pleads a pretty interesting case of why he believes specific things about putting more troops in Iraq and Afghanistan.
Yeah, that sounds really interesting. I think I want to read that because I think I've been reticent about reading books by people like that, by John McCain, because I guess I just had this kind of same kind of bias that you were talking about, just kind of an assumption that he would just talk about policies that I wouldn't agree with. But it sounds like he's much more bipartisan than I thought.
Yeah, but there's some stuff you won't agree with too. Of course, he loves the military. He was a veteran, so.
Right.
But I understand his rationale when it comes to talking about military and foreign relations. Like, it seems like he knows what he's talking about, and there's like these truths that are very uncomfortable when it comes to foreign policy. A lot of his candor is about how he likes to shock people, and usually those truth-telling moments lose him voters more than win him. But he doesn't want to be like this person who just says things to get people to vote for him. He wants to tell people what the truth of the matter is, whether it's going to lose him voters or get him voters.
Good for him.
And the other book, of course, I'm still working through The Wheel of Time. I'm on Shadow Rising.
Oh, cool. Which one is that? Is that the fourth?
Yeah, that's right now. I just read the part about the bubbles of evil. Do you remember that?
Vaguely, very vaguely.
Well, that's when the axe attacks Perrin, when the playing cards attacks Matt, and when the copies of Rand in the mirror attack him.
Oh, okay. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, and then before that, Barrelane tries to get into his pants. And he shoos him. He shoos her out of the room.
Right. Yeah.
I was like,
That
dude,
happens.
if I were Matt, I wouldn't. If I were Rand, I don't think I would be able to easily shoo Barrelane out of a room.
Yeah, that happens a lot throughout the books, like especially after the first three. Like those are parts when I think, man, if I were him, I wouldn't have done that.
Yeah, I would have just hooked up with Barrelane.
Yeah.
Even she said it was nothing. It's just it's just business for her. It wasn't a personal thing.
Yeah.
Oh well. But yeah, that's what part I'm at. I think they also just finished interrogating some of the Black sisters. But yeah, that's how far along I am. I just finished the first 100 pages, and that book is 900 pages long.
Yeah, a lot of them are like 900 pages or even like 1,000 pages long, depending on the version that you read.
Yeah, and then I think The Shadow Rising is one of the longer books in the series.
Yeah. Which one is that one again?
That's the fourth book, the one I'm reading now.
Oh, right, right. Okay. Yeah. You just reminded me that I'm also reading the 10th book of the Wheel of Time series right now, Crossroads of Twilight.
Yeah, you're getting there. You're almost
Yeah.
done. Just got
Yeah.
what, 14 books? Well, 15, I guess if you count New Dawn. Did you read New Dawn already?
New Spring.
New Spring.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. I did what you recommended and read it after I think the sixth or the seventh book, which I think you said was when it was actually released. Yeah, so I read that before. Sorry?
I think it was after the seventh.
Okay. Yeah, yeah, I read that one before between the seventh and eighth books before I read the eighth one.
Yeah, I'm also gonna follow that same practice. I think the first time around I read I read New Spring last. I was like,
Oh.
I probably could have read this a lot sooner. Okay, so the first book I ever read was The New Spring.
Oh, so you actually read the prequel first.
No, I didn't read the whole prequel though. I read like the first 2 or 3 chapters. And I was like,
Oh, okay.
I knew this was supposed to be a good series, but as I was reading it, I felt like there's so much I didn't understand because I felt like they were talking about things that I should understand already.
Right.
So,
I
so
bet
I
that's
stopped. I stopped reading it and I started on the actual first book.
I bet that's why you recommended that same practice to me.
Yeah, except didn't you read the companion?
Um oh yeah, I did. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's called The World of the Wheel in Time. The whole series is so complex that I'm gonna read that again once I'm done the series.
What, the companion?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm on number 4. I don't know, there's some other books series I want to get into. Like I want to start Brandon Sanderson's Mistborn series. I'm just waiting for the audiobook on my library list.
He
So
wrote the he wrote the last 4 books of the Wheel of Time series, right?
he wrote the last 3, and the
3.
last
Oh,
3
okay.
were originally supposed to be just one book.
Right. So
And
he wrote 12, 13, and 14?
yes,
Okay.
and he's because this podcast that I listen to, they say that his other series are excellent books,
Cool.
and they all revolve around like a specific universe. So there's Mistborn, and then he has some other different series that are in the universe, but not
Oh,
like the
okay.
same characters. But I'm going to start with the Mistborn as soon as that library book becomes available.
Oh, okay. That actually sounds like what you were just describing about Brandon Sanderson. That sounds a little similar to Isaac Asimov and the robot series, like the iRobot series, compared to the Foundation series, because both of those book series take place basically in the same universe that Isaac Asimov created, but they're different stories and different characters, but there's like a little bit of minor overlap between the two different series.
Yeah, in the Brandon Sanderson universe, it's called Cosmere. The only reason I know is because they talk about it a little bit in the Wheel of Time podcast that I've been listening to. I'm like 156 episodes deep into.
Oh, wow. How many episodes are there?
I'm actually writing up on the most current episodes. So right now they're currently going through the Shadow Rising.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, so I'd
So,
say 165 maybe.
oh, so they've only covered up to the fourth book on that podcast?
Yeah, because they only do a couple episodes a week, and each episode is dedicated to an entire chapter or part of a chapter.
Oh,
In the
okay.
Shadow Rising, they dedicated 2 parts to the first chapter and 3 to the second. As the first 2 chapters in the Shadow Rising are actually abnormally long. I think the first chapter is like 45 pages, and the second chapter is like 35. Because usually the Robert Jordan chapters are like 10 pages, 15 or less.
Yeah.
But these 2 chapters are abnormally long, so they split them up into 3 episodes
Oh,
for the
okay.
second and 1 and 2 for the first.
It seems like in a lot of the later books, like maybe even the last 3 or 4 books that I've read, like the 10th, ninth, and maybe the 8th and 7th too, seem to have extremely long prologues in comparison to some of the other chapters.
Yeah, the prologues seem to be always pretty long, and that's probably because usually in the prologues they do like 3 or 4 point of view switches during those prologues, because usually the chapters are one point of view, and if they do switch to another point of view, it's just like maybe 2 pages at the end of the chapter. But yeah, the prologues will have like 3 or 4 point of view switches, so that's why they're a bit bulkier than the other
Yeah,
chapters.
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and most of the other chapters, it's like 1 or 2 point of views usually, I think, right?
Yeah, usually 1, sometimes 2. And
Yeah,
usually the second one is short.
yeah, it tends to focus on one in particular, I think. Yeah.
But yeah, and then the book itself, it's like humongous. Because the first book I got, I think it was The Great Hunt, and I got the mass market paperback. And I was not happy about the quality of mass market paperbacks. So it's like, screw this. I'm just going to get the trade paperbacks instead.
Oh, okay.
And the trade paperbacks aren't as thick as the mass markets, but they're bigger, like 9 inches by 5 inches. And the mass markets are like 4 inches by like 5 inches by 3 or something. Like they're the small, compact, but very thick books.
Right.
And I didn't like just like, I don't know, I just like looking at big fonts, bigger fonts. As the mass
Okay.
market fonts are tiny. The book binding isn't great. Um, like the covers are very weak and malleable and kind of crappy.
Okay.
Um, I don't know. I just like the feel of the trade paperbacks.
Okay.
Yeah, the only advantage you get from the mass market is that it has the original cover art on it. Like the original
Okay.
cover art isn't good, but it's the original cover art.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I like one thing I like about the mass market paperbacks too is that they're because the print is smaller. No, wait, no. That's not the mass market one. That must be the trade paperback then there, because the print is big. They're longer, so it's like a big, thick book. So you get like
Actually,
I
you
don't.
know what? The mass market paperbacks are thicker
Oh, they are? Okay. Oh, I had it
because
right the first time then. Okay.
yeah, like since the paper they can fit less words on it.
Right, that makes sense.
so there's more pages. On the
Right.
mass market, or on the paper, the trade, much larger pages, they can fit more words on the page. Even
Right.
though that even if the font is made bigger, they can still fit more words on the page. Also advantage to the trade is that you get colored maps. The
Oh, okay.
printing is much better, like the print quality. Because you know how on the beginning of each of the chapters there's like a little emblem?
Yeah.
Yeah. In the mass market, they're like kind of not that detailed, and it kind of looks like a little bland. I don't know how to explain it. It looks like the difference between looking at HD and SD.
Oh, okay.
So when you're reading a mass market, it's like you're reading in standard definition. If you're reading a trade paperback, it's like you're reading in high definition.
Oh, okay. I must have only read the mass market ones in the physical versions of the books that I read.
Yeah, the mass market ones are those books that you'll see at a checkout counter at a grocery store.
Yeah.
Those super fat books that
Yeah.
aren't that they're fat, but the pages are small.
Yeah. Yeah. I just like that sense sometimes of just having accomplished reading a really thick book, even though it's the same length, regardless of what format you get it in.
Well, I like the trade because they're the same size as a hardcover without the hardcover.
Right. Yeah.
So it's basically the same quality except the cover is not hard.
Yeah.
And then and like reading a trade paperback, it's like the book gets really bendy. I don't know how to explain it.
Yeah,
Um,
like the spine I think bends more easily when you're open flipping through the pages.
yeah, yeah. And then I don't know. I just like the feel of the trade. It's bigger. Like you could put it on a desk and read it. Just have like the pages splayed open on the desk, and it's very comfortable reading it that way. That's how I can read it like lying down or um, like put on a desk. Either way is comfortable with the trade paperback.
Yeah.
I can't really do that with a mass market paperback. You can't really just put it on the desk and read it.
Yeah, you gotta hold the pages open.
Yeah. So, and then I guess I'm just trying to collect the books. So I want to have, by the time I'm done reading all of these, I want to have like a library of Wheel of Time trade paperbacks
Awesome.
on my bookcase.
Cool.
14 books. It's like half. It's 14 books. It's like half a set of encyclopedias.
Yeah.
Well, it's gonna be 15, so I guess the only problem is New Spring doesn't is gonna look different because I've been researching the different ones. I think I might just get the hardcover of New Spring if it's cheap enough.
Okay.
Because all the trade paperbacks of the Wheel of Time actually look cool when they're stacked together.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
That's cool.
so that'll be nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what I'm reading.
Cool.
All right. So I guess we'll start the wrap up. Did you have anything, last thoughts about your readings or Ready Player One?
Mm, no, not really.
All right. Well, next week, I don't know what we're going to have planned. It may be a free for all. I almost feel like I read so many damn books that every damn session should be about some book.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
me too.
I don't want to bog it down by it always having to be about a book.
Yeah. Well, usually we talk about more than that in the free-for-alls too, right?
Yeah, free-for-alls, lots of current events, arguing if people wish. But book, we usually talk about some book at the end of any of these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So usually some type of book talk regardless.
Yeah.
So next week, I'm just going to call it as a free-for-all for now. That might change, but for now it's going to be free-for-all. Also in the month, we're going to discuss the history of sexuality.
Awesome.
So if you want to learn about the postmodern boogeyman, join us in the month, and you'll get to learn a little bit about the evil man Foucault,
Yep.
the postmodern neo-Marxist. We will be expounding postmodern neo-Marxist teachings. Get to know a little more about your postmodern neo-Marxism. Please join us in a month from now.
And we'll indoctrinate everyone into identity politics.
Yeah, I'm reading it because I think I mentioned it before. I like to check out pieces by boogeymen.
Yeah.
To see what they're all about. Like I read Elliot Rodgers' manifesto.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I recommend that. I'm not saying that. It's actually pretty horrific, but it's interesting getting into the psychology of someone that would do that.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, so we're gonna check out this boogeyman, see if there's anything really to fear about it.
Yeah.
I have the feeling after reading this, I'll want to read some more Foucault stuff.
Yeah, I recommend it. You know, the first one that I read, I think, was one that that Thaddeus Russell, James Sullivan, and Isaiah all recommended to me, which was Discipline and Punish, which is it's the kind of historiography that Foucault does, but instead of it being about the history of sexuality, it's about the history of the prison system. He goes mostly into it in terms of France because that's where he was living at the time, but it kind of applies to Western culture in general, similar to the way that it does in the history of sexuality.
Yeah, I heard Discipline and Punish is quite good. The reason I'm starting, because this one was actually recommended to me as well by Isaiah. He told me to check this one out.
Yeah, it was to me too.
But I do want to check out Discipline and Punish as well. I have heard about it, and I've heard lectures about that. I've heard Foucault himself talk about it in YouTube videos. And I thought it was interesting how that has changed and whether the way that we discipline and punish people is actually beneficial to society as a whole.
I don't think it is.
Yeah, that's why I'm pretty sure that he will say in the book. But yeah, that's what we're going to talk about, the history of sexuality. We'll talk about that book in a month. And I guess we'll go ahead and start with the plugs. Go ahead, Andrew.
Sure. Yeah, if anyone wants to, they can check out my YouTube channel and Mindgasms. And I do videos about ideas, and I do podcasts with people like Dusty and lots of other mixed mental artists and lots of other interesting people. And then there's also my blog at mindgasms.theblogpress.com, and I write blogs about ideas there and write chapters of my novel that I've been writing, and sometimes short stories and poems too. And then also I'm on the social medias, the Facebook Ibuha and the Twitter at Andrew Meintzer. And Then also I've got my Patreon page as well, which is Mindgasms. And apparently Patreon decided to put the adult content warning on my page now because I guess that's what happens when you talk about ideas like sex and drugs. So, yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I got an email about that the other day. Like,
Did they
okay.
tell you why?
No, they didn't give me a specific reason. They just said, like, it falls into the category of this stuff that qualifies as adult content. But
Well, I get it, because you do, don't you puff on camera?
Oh yeah, I do sometimes. And that's legal here in Canada now, but it's probably not to lots of the places where people watch my videos, like the States and stuff.
Yeah, it's legal, but you have to be a certain age, right?
Yeah, that too. Yeah, children aren't allowed to smoke weed. And then,
All right. Well, go ahead, continue on. I'm sorry I interrupted.
oh no, I was just saying I guess they don't want kids to hear about stuff like sex and blowjobs and how prostitution and all drugs should be legal and stuff like that.
Yeah, that is for adults. I'd say so.
Yeah. And I guess I
All
swear a
right.
lot sometimes too.
Everybody swears on YouTube.
Yeah, true.
All right. Did you mention your Bookie Booha?
Yeah. I didn't mention my weird German spelling of my last name now, though. If anyone's looking for
There
that,
you
it's
go.
Meintzer. But yeah.
You didn't mention why you use that.
Yeah, I use Z because I'm Canadian, eh? I don't say Z.
All right. Well, oh yeah, another book I didn't mention is The Last City of Z. I finished the book
Oh, cool.
and watched the movie. I recommend both, by the way.
Oh, okay. I forgot. Did you mention last week that there's a movie of it too? I remember you telling me about the book.
Yeah, there is a movie, and I watched it on the super secret website that I sent you.
Okay. Good that super
So,
secret website is working again now, so I can finish watching Ready Player One.
all right. Well, first and foremost, I'm going to thank all patrons who donate to Mixed Mental Arts. Thank you. And lets us upkeep the operation. I will need to speak to some people or have a meeting to see what we're going to do about the BCS show, which is Brian Callen's show, and it's
that almost
how we're
sounds
going to
dirty.
upload that. The BCS show.
Yeah.
Like BDS, BCS.
Yeah.
Yeah, always check us out on Facebook. We're always having some lively conversations. You can check out our sister podcasts as well, like Andrews. We have Ladon Juracek and his various podcasts, and we have Eric Hunley and his Unstructured podcast. Be sure to check those out, as well as Mixed Mental Arts. No, we haven't released anything in a while, but we have a huge backlog of episodes. So if you're looking for something new or old, check out our backlog. They've talked to tons of academics and interesting people, as well as porn stars and comics in the early days. So if you want to check out some of that stuff, check into some of the old Mixed Mental Arts episodes. I know there's a couple that have not been released yet, so I have to talk to some people, see if we can get some of these recorded, unreleased podcasts out soon.
Sweet.
And check out our Facebook group. We're always arguing about political crap all the time. So check that out if you want to participate in some nuanced argumentation about current events and stupid crap going on in the world. Check out our Instagram as well as their Twitter. You can find that at Mixed Mental Arts. And thank you for listening. And please join us next week for a free for all. I'm also very sorry about the postponement. I just had some medical issues that I had to take care of yesterday. But if everything goes well, Saturday, like normal, well, that's when we're going to be broadcasting. All right. Well, thank you, everybody, for checking us out today. Check out Ready Player One. Check out Mixed Mental Arts. And have a great evening.
Adios, everyone.